Tonight, Superman gets asked why he can't just redo the plot for Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. Multiversity devotes an entire Earth to these damn lazy kids don't know how good they got it. And Catwoman is now written by someone else, and wouldn't you know it, it's suddenly good. All that and more tonight on the Not-So-New 52. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 164 of the Not-So-New 52. I am your host and we have 16 comics to get through, so I'm just gonna literally cut all of the crap out of this intro sequence and just get right into it, alright? So if you want to know what comics are in this episode, if you're watching the video, they're on screen, check it out, or they're in the description of whatever you are listening/watching this through. The only things I'm going to say, just for the sake of not confusing you at all, is that we have two brand new number ones. Those are Arkham Manor and Deathstroke. We also have a new Multiversity issue, which kind of counts as a number one, but not actually. And then the only other big thing here, besides the event comic, which is in Red Lanterns, that is Godhead, is that Batman Eternal for this week, the weekly comic, goes just before Arkham Manor. So if you plan on listening to this episode out of order, just know that the context for Arkham Manor is in Batman Eternal. I will structure it that way in the episode, but you need to know in case you're skipping around. Okay, great, cool. Anyway, on to the comics. Multiversity, The Just, number 1, written by Grant Morrison, art by Ben Oliver. So this takes place on Earth 16, which is a world where the children of the original superheroes are now around, and the original superheroes did such a good job of cleaning up the Earth. Specifically, they mentioned Superman's robot army. The children have nothing to do, and they basically are just treated like celebrities who go out and just have fun as superheroes kids. So we open up with Sister Miracle, Sasha Norman, talking to her friend Sapphire Mason, aka Megamorpho, and apparently Sasha has some sort of techno virus inside of her that Ray Palmer Adam is currently clearing out of her system, but she'd be able to clear it out a lot faster if she were able to be genuinely sad about something. And she's saying this to Megamorpho, and Megamorpho's just we're all doomed, everything's a joke, and nothing matters. And has a superhero ever committed suicide? And Sasha's like, no. And she's like, well, cool, I'm going to be the first. And as Sasha's listening on the phone, Sapphire jumps off a building and kills herself. So we then go to Gotham City, where we meet with, I believe it is Alexis Luthor, who is the girlfriend of Damian Wayne, who is currently Batman. And she is reading the Ultra Comics, the haunted comic book that we've seen all throughout Multiversity thus far. And she's like, oh yeah, this is so post-chic, hipster, whatever, reading comic books, but this one's supposedly haunted. And Damian's like, can we please pay attention here, Alexis? There's a big thing going on outside. It's a whole big spectacle. And we see a whole bunch of huge lights coming down from the sky, and all the civilians down below are like, whatever, it doesn't matter. And Alexis is just purposely calling him gay because he is more focused on this than he is with being with his girlfriend, which is her. So the Superman army comes in, they start beating back all of the robots or whatever that are coming down from the sky, and he's just like, all right, whatever. It looks like it's all taken care of. It's boring anyway. So he comes over and starts talking to her about the book, and they're basically saying yeah, it's haunted. It's this whole big thing. It's a predatory story. And Damian's just like, oh, there's all this fictitious crap. It doesn't matter. So at that point, he starts leafing through it, and then Alexis is just like, hey, how about you and I head back to your bedroom and have some fun? And he's like, oh, absolutely. And they briefly talk about how, her dad is Lex Luthor and how he did horrible things, and she's kind of still paying for his crimes, but they start getting it on. And as they are about to really get into it, all of a sudden the door opens up. Batman's like, oh crap, it's Superman. Here, get under my cape. It's lead-lined. Hide in the closet. And she's like, what? No. She ends up doing it anyway. We then meet Superman, who is Chris Kent. And he's like, hey, Damian, why is your heart racing? He's like, nothing. Simulations. Why are you back from space? And he's like, space is boring. Doesn't matter. Hey, did you know that Megamorpho killed herself and nobody knows why? And he's like, what? Oh, that's crazy. But your robot army, I'm sure, can solve it because it's whatever. And Chris is just like, no, this isn't like... This is something we should do. This is not, we shouldn't let my dad's robot army solve everything. Like, it's not my fault he left behind this huge thing that basically keeps the world safe in perpetuity. We should do something to help out our friend here. And he then mentions that he had an experience with the Sandman. And Damian literally says, what, like Neil Gaiman's Sandman? And he's like, yeah, no, I had a dream and I ran into him. And Batman's like, do you understand how pathetic that sounds? Your big crossover adventure with him was you had a dream? Like, Jesus, man. So at that point, they start talking about more and more things about, like, all their run-ins with superheroes and villains or whatnot are all just... Who cares? Like, they're basically being punked. It's all just fun and games the entire way through. And Chris manages to look into Damian's closet, sees the lead-lined cape in the shape of a girl, and he's like, that's Alexis, isn't it? There's this big party going on. Sasha's throwing it. And you want me to say I can't be there so that Alexis can show up? Like, don't expect that from me. And literally... most of this story is about whether or not people are going to be able to show up to Sasha's party. Like, that's the thing that this generation is the most worried about at this point. So Batman says, okay, well, I'll take this seriously. Do you know why I think Megamorpho committed suicide? She was bored, just like the rest of us. So Batman goes, talks to Alexis. Alexis is super pissed off that she's banned from the party. She's also not showing up to this art show that's going on from Superboy. And Batman tries to talk her down, but she's just like, you know what? Why don't you just admit that you're in love with Superman? You can go off and be gay together, but don't expect me to give this up. I'm going to get even. So then we cut over to Sasha, who calls up Damian, basically says, hey, I hope you show up to the party or whatever. And then cries out a tear that has the Atom in it, and Atom's just like, oh, hey, party going on, let's hear about that. We then go to the death site of Megamorpho, and Kyle Rayner, Green Lantern's looking over it. He's the last of the Green Lanterns at this point. Her boyfriend, who's Ernie O'Brien, obviously related to Plastic Man, is there telling him, like, oh yeah, she read this comic book and she got super upset about it. And Kyle's like, oh yeah, I know all about comic book art. And they start talking about how there was the Retaliators from Major Comics, and they had an Essential Genocide crossover, which is just making fun of Marvel stuff. But they start looking around her apartment trying to figure out what's going on. They say that his Plastic Man's kid, Offspring, he's just in shock. We see Connor Hawke as Green Lantern. And they just start talking about the good old days. They're just like, oh yeah, you remember when like our villains were scary and stuff like that? Like, man, we don't have anything like that anymore. But they're talking about how they're getting everyone together for a reenactment of the Red Amazo crisis. And that's a big thing that they're coming up on. So we then go to an art show. It's being held by Con-El, the Superboy. And Alexis is talking to Harlequin, who is apparently a friend of hers, and it's just like, oh yeah, remember, Superboy is a clone of Superman, and as we found out, all of the Superman clones eventually devolve into Bizarros, and so he's going to keep on denying it, say that it's like Tourette's syndrome or whatever, but he's slowly turning into a Bizarro. And we see that one of his paintings that he has in his art show is of this woman called the Gray Lady, who shows up in dreams and whatnot. She's actually part of the Gentry. We saw that all before. And he just, all of a sudden, Con-El just starts like coughing up dust and whatnot. And we see that Green Arrow's daughter is the one who's like currently caring for Con-El and gets him out of the party. So then the Justice League go and they fight the Red Amazo crisis. Just a reenactment of Red Tornado and Amazo crossed over and got all their powers or whatnot. And as they start trying to reenact, all of a sudden, the Guardian, I believe his name was, Alpha Centurion, my bad. He gets punched out of the sky, which apparently didn't happen originally. His arm gets broken. Everything starts going to hell. And so Kyle Rayner steps in. He starts throwing punches. And he's like freaking out, calling about Major Force. And like, why? Why did you do it? Why did you kill her? And Wally comes in. He's like, whoa, hey man, that wasn't Major Force. That was Red Amazo. Like, do you remember the story? If we kill Red Amazo, our teammates dies. And Kyle freaks out. He's like, no one's going to die. And so they all start calming down, just like, okay, hey, quick question. Aquaman Garth speaks up, and he's like, why are we even doing this? Why are we doing battle reenactments? Like, what's the big deal? The world is safe. Why are we even bothering? It's just like, well, the world might not be safe one day, and we need to keep our battle senses sharp. And he's just like, that's not gonna, like, the Superman army controls all crime. Like, it stops all bad things from happening. Everything is perfectly fine. Meanwhile, Steel and Bloodwind go over and look at the Red Amazo robot and try to figure out why it went haywire, why things went different. And they see something about a higher dimension in there. So we also meet Argus, who is Nick Kovac, who's like, I wasn't even part of this battle, so I'm just over here in the shadows. But whatever. This whole thing's stupid anyway. So we then cut back over as Damian is interrogating Offspring, basically saying, all right, tell me everything she did. And he's like, oh, we were just reading comic books. She was reading this one, and then she got super upset. But, like, she's Megamorpho. Like, she's going to come back from the dead. We always come back from the dead, right? And Damian's like, no, dude, she's dead. She's gone. Get over that. But let me see this comic book you were talking about. And we see that it's the Society of Superheroes issue of the Multiversity. And something about I'd never pronounced this right, the indicia of the book, where it's like, who was it published by and all that other stuff. We see that something in there is wrong. So Damian calls up Superman, says, hey, we need to talk. We cut over to Menta, who is apparently a inherited telepathic helmet from her dad. I don't recognize it, but regardless, she's like, oh yeah, I just started working on this. I really want to be part of a team or whatnot. So I want to be a superhero. Can I do that, Superman? And he's like, I'll let you know. So we see them doing a autopsy on Megamorpho. They're trying to figure out what they can do. Bloodwind is speaking to her soul from the afterlife as Damian comes in and says, hey, Superman, I need to talk to you. So we then go to Planet Krypton, the restaurant, and Arrowette, the daughter of Green Arrow, is talking to Connor Hawke, basically saying, hey, we're making a team. All of us, like, really young ones, like all the kids, we're going to call ourselves the Just. And in order to do that, I need to get your trick arrows, Dad. Can you give me a few? And he's just like, this isn't fun and games. This is a serious thing. Like, we fought actual threats. And she's just like, it is a game now, though. Like, we're just making a little club and we're just going to go out and, like, hit the town that way. So please, can I have some of your trick arrows? It's really going to bring the whole costume together. And he's like, all right, look, I'll give you 4 arrows, none of them explosive. And she's like, 5? And he's like, fine, whatever. So we see her tweeting the entire time. Meanwhile, Batman talks to Superman, basically points out the indicias of the book and says, look, I've cross-referenced all these addresses, these companies that these comics says that they're published by. None of them are part of this Earth. None of them exist on this planet except for one. And that's the only, like, all of these different things are pointing to parallel worlds. That's the only way. And they say that they're haunted, and, like, something big is happening there. And Superman's like, what? So, like, they become infected when they read it? Is that what happened to Megamorpho? And Batman's like, oh, and Alexis was reading it as well. So he gets concerned about that. We see, again, Bloodwind is speaking to Sapphire from across the grave and says, who's that knocking on the door? And gives all these cryptic things as Menta ends up leaving. It's just like, oh, hey, they said something about a killer comic book. This is super awesome, Arrowhead. I can't wait to hang out with Batman and Superman some more. So Batman and Superman go back to Alexis' apartment to do some investigation on the comic book. They once again talk more about their relationship, Batman's relationship with Alexis, and Superman's just like, nobody else was off the guest list of the party, Damian. Clearly, she's bad news. And then all of a sudden, the dimensional box thing shows up in the apartment, and they're like not drawing any attention to it at all. We see all the Superman robots have also arrived. They're all on high alert, and Superman's like, yeah, that's normal. It's a whole thing going on here. And they make the point that Alexis was meeting up with Jakeem Thunder, who has an all-powerful genie, and as they're making that point, all of a sudden Superman's robots turn on Superman, attack Chris Kent, take him out. Alexis steps out of the shadows and says, yeah, I'm using his genie to take over Superman's army, and I'm going to, like, do what I need to do here. And they're literally talking about crashing the party. That is literally the problem that they are inventing here. But Damian's like, oh, I stuck up for you. How could you do this? So we then cut to Sasha's party. We see everyone is there. Everyone's having a good time. Batman is fighting against the Superman robots, doing what he can. But then as the party is going on, we see Sasha is tweeting about it and says, oh, we've heard all this stuff about parallel worlds, haunted comic books. I mean, how cool would it be to run into that stuff? And then as they are having this party, we see that the Superman robot army is literally just destroying the planet. It's just going haywire and killing everybody. So who's going to be the ones to stand up to it? I don't know. Everyone seems a little bit out of it. It's dense. It's like every other Multiversity issue. I think that this one is a little bit more of the times. Like, it does feel like it's 10 years old, but at the same time, it does have some modern comparisons as well. I'm not going to say it's a bad issue by any means. It's not. It's very well written. I love the art style. Ben Oliver does a great job. It's just kind of like doing nothing to ingratiate yourself with any of the characters, and by the time that you do start to feel like, oh, there's a threat coming up, it's done. So it has some issues, but ultimately it is still a well-written book. I think overall I'm probably going to come down on a 7 for this one, but it's still a nice next chapter for the rest of what Multiversity has been. Red Lanterns number 35, written by Charles Soule, art by Jim Calafiore. This is the next part of the Godhood event going on, and we see the opening of Ice, who's just chilling on a beach with Guy Gardner. Guy seems distracted, and she calls him out on it. And he's like, hey, yeah, look, I'm sorry. I know it's a hot beach and all that, and you'd much rather be elsewhere, but, like, I appreciate you coming here. And she points out that he's still wearing the Red Lantern ring around his neck, despite the fact everything it's caused in his life recently. And he's like, no, I'm keeping this as a reminder. I'm not letting myself forget about all the stuff that happened. And Ice is like, okay, I guess I can understand, but, like, why are we here on a beach in Dubai? Like, you could be anywhere. We could go anywhere. Why here specifically? And I'm sure that it's totally irrelevant to the fact that just across the bay here is a dictator of Karak who has promised millions of dollars to anyone who can give him superpowers, right? And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about, but maybe you could chill my beer a little bit? And she's like, yeah, all right. So we then see later on that night, guys watching Karak from across the bay. His Red Lantern ring starts growing and he grabs hold of it. So over in Karak, we meet up with Shakavat, the ruler of Karak, who has been given some port of, like, energy-based superpowers. He fires off a beam from his hand and lights this torch on this massive statue of himself that he has constructed. And then all of a sudden it blows up. And Shakavat's like, I'm sorry, what? And Guy Gardner shows up. He's like, hey, big-ass statues don't typically end well. So Shakavat starts attacking Guy Gardner. He's like, you have no idea. I'm on the level of a god. I could easily take you out. And he's like, yeah, well, my name's Guy Gardner, and I protect Earth from guys like you. So they start battling it out. Shakavat's like, all right, make peace with your gods now. And then all of a sudden, Boob Tube opens up, knocks both of them to the ground. And we get introduced to a little cadre of new gods who's like, all right, let's do this. Immediately, Shakavat's like, who has dared invade my soil? And he's like, your soil? Psh, none of this soil is yours, not on a grand scheme. My name's Malhedron, and, like, you're beneath me. All of you are beneath me. And he's like, oh, that's where you're wrong. And then Malhedron just slams him into the ground, totally knocks him out. He's down for the count. But that's where he pulls out a giant energy mallet, and it's just like, all right, you three watch after this guy. I'm going to go after the real reason we're here, which is the ring guy. And so he starts walking over to Guy, and Guy's like, oh, geez, I don't like this. So he slams the mallet down, causes an energy attack at Guy. Guy starts firing back, and we see it's taking up, like, more than half of his battery's charge just to try to attack this guy. No damage whatsoever. And he's like, hey, man, nothing personal. I'm attacking you, but, like, I'm just following High Father's orders. And he said that you little weird monkey things can't wear rings. They're too powerful. So I'm going to go ahead and take it. And, like, immediately, guys is like, wow, your High Father sounds like a Nazi. And he's just like, don't you speak ill of High Father. He is above me as far as I'm above you. So He's about to go ahead and crush Guy Gardner's head when all of a sudden a Green Lantern construct gets in the way and manages to blast Malhedrin a little bit out of the way so that Simon Baz can come in and swoop Guy out of the way. He's like, hey man, we should leave. And Guy's like, what are you talking about? The fight's just getting started. He's like, no, you don't understand. These guys, they call themselves New Gods. They have decimated the core. They have taken Mogo's ring. They are not to be trifled with. We need to bail and come back with a plan later on. And Guy's like, nah, we're the protectors of Earth. They're on Earth. We need to protect it. Even if that means going down, we might take a few of them with us. And Simon's like, okay, yeah, sure, I guess if I have to. So he's ready to go. The entirety of the New Gods are ready to fight as well. They fire off an energy blast, which seemingly does a huge amount of damage to them. But before Malhedrin can continue, he gets a call from Highfather, and he's like, hey, I pretty much have the life equation in my grip. Can you guys come back? And he's like, I'm about to take care of some ring bearers. Is that still what you want me to do? He's like, no, don't worry about that. Just come on back to New Genesis. So they boom tube out. Guy and Simon are like, okay, well, we're alive, so that's something. But right now, we need to figure out what we're going to do. And right now, their plan is that they're going to go to them, to New Genesis, and kick their asses. That's their plan. Not a great one, Guy. It's a fast-paced issue. It's mostly a fight scene, but ultimately it sets it up of, yeah, like, we left Guy in a place where he seemingly is good, but he's still got some guilt as to the stuff the Red Lanterns caused, and now he's bringing that to fruition by taking out a dictator, leading right into the New God stuff. So it flows. It makes sense why Guy's involved. It's nice to have Simon back, because Simon has always been kind of tangentially in the background for these books. It's nice to have him actually be involved in something here. Beyond that, it's probably just going to be I kind of want to say 7. It's a little lower, but I think I'm still going to round up to the 7. It's a nice little issue, but ultimately doesn't have a lot going for it. I would say you could probably jump right on into the next issue if you didn't care about how he got involved in the event. Deathstroke #1, written and art by Tony S. Daniel. This is the reboot of the Deathstroke series after Rob Liefeld essentially nuked it from orbit. So the opening of this book is essentially reestablishing Deathstroke. For anybody who doesn't know, he's a mercenary, Deathstroke the Terminator, Slade Wilson. He's not inherently evil. He just works for whoever has the most money, which mostly makes him evil. And he's like, yeah, no, I'm actually a heck of a good guy in my eyes. So he just recounts all the players that we need to know. He has a guy named Tiggs, who's the middleman, gets all the jobs set up, and then informs Slade on what it is. They don't use technology. It's all done by hand, because there's always some hacker trying to break in. And we see that one of the guys that he is supposed to go after this time, amongst multiple others, is a guy named Possum, who is not a good-looking dude. We also have, over in Russia, which is where the job takes place, a contact named Angelica. And they sleep together a lot, but Angelica is also a good point of contact to be able to find out where people are in all of Russia. So once they're done sleeping together for a while, we then see Deathstroke go and do his job. And it's literally just a 2-page spread of him killing literally everybody. All the people, no problem. And he's like, yep, got it all. Location, names, faces, all the stuff I need. And as he's wrapping up, there's just one person left alive. He's like, hey, you're not on my list, so go off and make some better friends. And he's like, yes, okay, totally, bye. So meanwhile, he manages to go across town, tracks down Angelica, who apparently was getting some information through some very advanced interrogation techniques. And he's just like, oh yeah, see, they've never failed you before. These guys were squealing out all the locations for the guys. And they were saying how they were trying to set you up. And that was a whole thing of why they were even telling the location in the first place. He's like, what? Set up? What are you talking about? And she says, like, oh yeah, something about walking into a trap, whatever. So at that point, they say that there's some sort of tone going on in the room, some sort of transmitting frequency that only he can hear. And he's like, I don't hear anything. But then in the corner of the room, tied up, is Possum. And he's like, oh, hey, I was wondering what happened to you. You look even uglier than last time. He's like, oh, yeah, totally. But do you hear it, Slade? Do you hear the key unlocking? And then all of a sudden, Slade just breaks. Something in his mind goes haywire. His body locks up. He's not able to move, and he just falls backward. Possum punches through the face of Angelica. She's super dead. And Possum then walks over to Slade and just like, all right, go ahead, say it. And Slade spits out this code. He goes like R718, blah, blah, blah. Just a whole bunch of letters and numbers. And Possum's like, there you go. And that's you using 90% of your brain capacity. So Slade's still incapacitated. He's just muttering that he's going to kill Possum. Possum gets Deathstroke's swords off of his sheaths, like slashes them down into his shoulders, cutting very deep. And he's like, oh, yeah, let's test out that healing factor. See if it's as good as mine. So he's going to chop off Deathstroke's head, and as he's about to, Deathstroke manages to break free, grab the sword, and push the hilt of it up through Possum's head, like brains out the back. So Deathstroke stands up and he's like, oh, all right, I gotta get out of here because more backup's clearly coming. So he very quickly wraps up his shoulders, gets the bleeding to stop. And then, of course, backup shows up, and this time by aerial assault. So a bunch of like ninjas and soldiers jump out. They're all decked out to the nines in armor. And he's like, yeah, all right, I'm going to just lay here and let them come to me. And as he's pretending to be wounded, they all show up. Deathstroke then goes in, charges. He figures out that their weak spot through all of their armor is through their helmets because it's just a random mask. It's not anything with any actual cover. So he starts slashing at their necks and their faces. And in doing so, he's able to take all of them out, no problem. But there's still the plane overhead, which fires down a missile, which seems to be an issue, but Slade manages to escape. So he's like, all right, I'm out. Gotta figure out what's up. And Possum, because he has a healing factor, somehow managed to survive. And he says, all right, Deathstroke, that's right, keep running. So Deathstroke makes his way down through the streets, and he's like, okay, I need to reach Tiggs. I need to go back and see if Angelica's okay. I need to see who hired me from Tiggs. And like, he's like, I need to stop losing so much goddamn blood and start healing up. And finally, he runs into a man named I Ching. And he doesn't even remember this guy. He just has this instinctual urge that he needs to go find this guy. And I Ching's like, oh, yeah, sit, Mr. Wilson. And then Deathstroke just collapses to the ground. So after 16 days, Deathstroke wakes up in a castle on like a hill, some sort of mansion, and I Ching's there with a whole like cult of monks. And they're just like, oh, see, we brought you back from the dead. And he's like, what do you mean? And he's like, oh, you've exceeded our expectations. But regardless, I must go now. The rest is up to you. And him and the cult just disappear and says that he will collect when the time has come. For now, focus on survival. And Deathstroke sits up. He realizes something's wrong. And we see that he is very bloodied, but he is also much younger. He is in his prime, mid-20s. So we're getting a young Deathstroke story. Not like when he was young, just he is young. It's set up a lot. It's done a lot with the characters. Obviously, Angelica's freaking dead, or at least she should be. We set up Possum as at least a player in a larger game. I Ching, that exists. I'm interested in all the moving parts, and obviously it's some sort of a trap that someone knew a weakness of Deathstroke's, and it's interesting to see how that's all going to play out. I imagine his family is going to come into it somehow, because don't they always? Beyond that, I'm going to give this one I'll give it a 7.5. It's good. It's a nice solid issue. I don't really have much to complain about, and the art's also very well done. So yeah, 7.5 for this. Batman Eternal number 29, written by Snyder, Tynion, Fawkes, Higgins, and Seeley. Art by, one moment, Simon Coleby. So this issue picks up in Arkham Asylum, where most of the story takes place. We see that Alfred is potentially in an Arkham Asylum cell where he is just having nightmares and seeing things and screaming. And we see that he's being checked on by Dr. Milo and another nurse/doctor who earlier on we saw was actually a patient who is now here, like running the thing, but also I think she was killed earlier as well. It's a whole thing. Regardless, we see that down below, we get the Jim Corrigan Spectre stuff. He is currently being attacked / possessed by Deacon Blackfire, who's saying, yes, you and your holy whatever inside of you is going to allow me to join together the worlds of the living and the dead. And that's my final goal here. And Corrigan's just like, why would you ever think this would work? This is so far beyond what you are capable of doing. Oh, wait a minute. You're being controlled by something bigger. You're being tricked, aren't you? And Deacon's like, no, shut up. I'm not. This is going to work. So we then go to Joker's daughter, who is sitting on a casket, I don't know, a coffin, whatever you want to call it. And there's somebody inside saying, please let me out. I need to go to the hospital. Please stop this, which I also am inclined to believe is Alfred, because the last time we saw Alfred, he was being left in Joker's daughter's care. So I don't know. Regardless, she's left a note, and she gets up to read it, and it says, go back to Blackfire, do what he says. And so we see that she is theoretically above ground at this point. I'll be honest, I have completely missed, like, what is supposed to be going on here. But Hush is using, I believe, some of Batman's blood and a voice-activated thing in order to get into one of his tiny little Batarang boxes, like something where he's got a little bit of supply stashed, and he puts a bomb inside. So back below Arkham, we see that Batwing manages to come back too. He was knocked unconscious. His suit's just throwing up tons of stuff saying, like, errors on everything. By the way, Riddler's code from earlier, do you want us to try to keep cracking that? And it's like, yeah, sure, why not? Keep going. So then he's attacked by some sea creatures, some demons, stuff like that. And they keep on attacking. Batman finally gets over the comms, and he's like, hey, Batwing, you there? And he's like, yeah, I'm here. I'm under Arkham. Everything is crap, and I'm losing terribly. I don't know where Corrigan Spectre is. I don't know what's going on. And Batman's like, you called in earlier this week and said everything was fine. He's like, no, I did not. This has not been fine. Please, for the love of God, get down here. So we see Batwing manages to fly away, saying, like, nothing makes sense. I hate magic. And we see Magpie, that's who it is, the nurse, and Milo are dragging some random Arkham employee down the hall saying, like, oh, help me with this one. And she points out, like, this is weird. I feel like I'm dreaming. And he's like, you were killed, like, 3 weeks ago, and yet you're still here. Do you remember that? And we see being dragged past all the different Arkham Asylum inmates, including Alfred. And he's like, I think I have a theory, though. This asylum is not meant for making sick people better. It just doesn't work. It's broken. And we cut over to Batman, and Batman's looking around. He's just like, this whole city's losing its mind. That thing with Arkham's going on, like, this is all too big for Hush. Like, there's no way that Hush could have been able to do anything with Deacon Blackfire. That doesn't make any sense. And Julia pops over the comm saying, like, all right, well, maybe you're being a little bit paranoid. Like, maybe we deal with the Hush thing regardless, and then we see what all is left over afterwards. A couple of helicopters are coming in to attack, like, a group of rioters. Batman manages to take them down via non-lethal means, but he takes out the helicopters, and he's like, okay, look, I need you to help Batwing. So he gets Julia in touch with Batwing. Batwing's code uploads to the computer, the Bat computer. And immediately Batman's like, yeah, if it's a cipher, just try his name, Enigma with a Y. And so it looks like it's working, but the Bat computer still has to chug through a bunch of systems. We then see Joker's daughter gets approached by a demon who says, oh, daughter, Blackfire calls for you. You must come and help Blackfire. And then Joker's daughter just bashes him across the head saying, you're not my daddy. Daddy would never order me around. Somebody's been tricking me, and I won't be taking it. So we then see Spectre does finally, like, he's saying, like, Blackfire, seriously, you don't know what's going on. You need to stop this. But it does start coming to a boil. Everything starts going bad, and the Spectre starts coming out. We then see everyone starts making their way down towards the Blackfire's area. Joker's daughter, Batwing, even Milo from above. And Batwing calls together all of his scattered suit pieces, which I guess were around, just in time to see the Spectre getting torn from Corrigan. And at that point, the code starts coming through as well. So Batwing jumps in. He tries to attack Blackfire. It's not working because he has all this power of the Spectre now. The entirety of the Arkham Asylum starts erupting with this green energy. And all of a sudden, a giant beam of light just straight up eviscerates the entire asylum, just brings it all down. And the final code of Riddler comes through saying, Arkham is just a piece of the plan. If you can read this, you're smart enough to know your foe. So everything has gone to hell. Arkham Asylum is no more. And that leads directly into Arkham Manor, which also came out the same week. So, yeah, it's a big week. Here's the thing. I've always been confused about what's going on with the Arkham plot, and it doesn't feel like I'm actually getting any answers here. Like, is this Joker Daughter's plot? Is this Deacon Blackfire's plot? Is this whoever's in charge of Deacon Blackfire's plot? I don't know. But I didn't get any answers as to what the plot actually was. So I'm a little bit let down that we're kind of just wrapping this up just for the sake of, and then the plot thing happened where Arkham Asylum is destroyed. Like, okay, but what was going on there? Was it all just to get the Spectre out? In which case, I didn't feel like that was the case for the first any of the beginning stuff. So yeah, it's a little bit of a mess, but ultimately it's not a bad issue. So I think I'm just going to end up with a 6 on this one and hope that it gets better next time. Arkham Manor #1, written by Gerry, Duggan, art by Shawn Crystal. So this immediately picks up after the events of Batman Eternal #29, and we open with Arkham Asylum being literally blown to pieces by hellfire energy from beneath. So this takes place some point indiscriminately during and or mostly after Batman Eternal, where Arkham Asylum has been destroyed. All of the surviving inmates have been apprehended by police, and they're basically trying to figure out what to do with them. They first started putting them into the local hospital, and when that obviously was not a sustainable plan, they set up a basically internment camp at Gotham Stadium in order to hold them there. And we get a whole bunch of people on the news of saying like, oh, my tax dollars shouldn't be going to those loonies. And, oh, we have been begging Gotham to be building like low-income housing or something that we want. No, they're just going to build another asylum. This sucks. And so it gets up to Mayor Haiti, who's given a list of all of the buildings that theoretically could work to house the asylums. And he's just like, no, this sucks. I hate this. Wait a minute, this last one's pretty good. And they're like, that last one was a joke. That was just supposed to make you laugh. And he's like, no, it's perfect. Let's use that. So apparently what happened was at some point, I don't remember this happening, Bruce Wayne lost all of his money. He lost his fortune. Therefore, he's not living in the manor, and therefore they're taking Wayne Manor. And Alfred signs it away because he's technically the rightful owner, I guess, at this point. And so they use eminent domain, and they say, all right, yeah, we're going to take that over, and nobody's going to complain. And we see some builders coming in to start making changes. They get the Wayne W on the doorway, and they chip off the 2 outside legs to just make a tiny little A symbol. So at that point, they're saying, yeah, sir, we've taken everything out of the house, and the only thing that was missing was a portrait of the Wayne family. I don't know what happened to it. It could be anywhere. Cut down to the Batcave. Batman is inside, and he's like, my mansion was a weakness. I've given up that weakness. Gotham is quiet. This is good. I am happy to give up my home. It's what my dad would have done. I'm totally okay with this. I have cemented up the stairway so that no one can possibly get down to the Batcave from the manor. And also, I'm putting away the huge stacks of TNT because I highly considered blowing up the manor rather than letting it be used by Arkham Asylum. But I didn't. So he's like, whatever, regardless, I still have to go take care of Gotham here. So he hops in the Batmobile, he goes out, and he's like, and I might be a little bit angry. And we see a couple of muggers who are pleading for forgiveness from the person they mugged. And Batman's like, now that sounds sincere. Ma'am, can you go ahead and call an ambulance? And she's like, oh, but I'm fine. They barely touched me at all. And he's like, it's not for you. And then she goes off running as Batman continues to beat up the muggers. We then go to the apartment of Bruce Wayne where, I guess he's staying. And Alfred has dipped into the family wine, and Bruce is just like, yeah, man, no, I get it. Like, it's fine. And Alfred's kind of upset by all this. He's like, I really don't like the fact that all of your former enemies and whatnot are living in Arkham Asylum. He's like, no, it's what my dad would have done. He would have gladly done it for the betterment of the city. And I agree. But then Alfred says, but sir, something terrible has happened there. And Batman immediately hops in the Batmobile. He takes back off towards the manor. He comments that, like, I could drive this road with my eyes closed, but I've never had to go in through the front door like this. So he comes out, dressed as Batman, walks up to the front door. And inside, he has a moment where he, like, pictures Jim Gordon in there, and he's 8 years old, and, like, you know, letting him know some bad news. But then also the current thing where it's been retrofitted for Arkham Asylum. The doctors are saying, like, you can't just come in here. And Batman's just like, screw you. So he goes with Harvey Bullock back into the back rooms. We see several of the inmates are saying, like, oh, this house has dark secrets and it whispers to me. But as he makes his way further back into the back rooms, he comes across what was formerly a bedroom, is now home to a murdered inmate, and there's blood everywhere. He's been puncture wounds several times over his body, and he's like, all right, this guy's been tortured. I need to know what's going on. And he starts looking into it, and he's like, okay, nobody broke into the room. There's an unknown subject. Maybe it might be staff, maybe not an inmate. He goes to Bullock about the cameras, and it's like, we didn't catch anything on the cameras. Our tech guys swear that they weren't manipulated, so we're not entirely sure. And Harvey says, this is just like the other one. And Batman's like, what do you mean the other one? And it's like, oh yeah, there was another murder here, and it's some other guy during our canvas. And Batman storms out, and he's like, all right, Alfred, I need you to find me a corpse. So we see that there is a John Doe somewhere in the system. He was a veteran. Something like that happened. He ended up dying. And Batman and Alfred intercept the John Doe, who they do have the name as Jack Shaw, and they take his identity and basically say, yeah, he served his country, but he's going to have to serve one more final purpose. And then we cut to a new inmate being brought into Arkham. He's ripped. He was standing in a subway, like, threatening people with a knife for transmitting thoughts at him. And so they bring him into, what is it called? You know, the processing. And it's like, all right, sir, what's your name? And he's like, oh, I'm Jack Shaw. And we see that it's very clearly Bruce. And they say, welcome to Arkham Manor. So Bruce has gone undercover to figure out what the hell is going on in the manor, because people are dying and he wants to be an inmate in his own home. So there's some fun that can be had here. I'm definitely not going to say it's not an intriguing idea for a subject. I will say that it feels like the most unnecessary book. When Arkham Asylum is destroyed, you just kind of blindly accept, of course it's going to get rebuilt. Like, it's always been rebuilt. But to have it switched and say, well, no, what if this time it didn't? It's an interesting concept, but, like, nobody was asking for this. So I hope that at least the rest of the book can justify the concept's existence, I guess I would say. Beyond that, it's a choice of an art style. It's very stylized in a lot of ways. You're either going to love it or hate it. I think I come closer down to love it. And writing-wise, it's not a bad setup either of just saying, yep, Batman's back in there, and we don't have to deal with any of the outside stuff right now, just accept that he's in the manor. So I'm going to give this one a 6.5, and I'll hope to see it improve from there. Catwoman number 35, written by Genevieve Valentine, art by Garry Brown. So this picks up after a recent issue of Batman Eternal, where Catwoman has basically said, yes, I see that Gotham is broken, and therefore I will unite the crime families by being the mob boss of the Calafiore family. So we open up in Gotham's warehouse district. A couple of mooks are just looking around, apparently trying to steal from the Calafiore merchandise, whatever it is they've got going on in their warehouse. And as they start unloading and searching through boxes, they're like, oh, what's the chances the merch is even here? And then a voice behind them says, slim. Turns out it's Catwoman. She's also got a little team working with her. And she's like, hey, tell us who you're working for and we'll stop anytime. And then they just start beating the crap out of these guys. And by the end of it, they manage to string them up from hooks at the top of the warehouse and drive away. And we meet out with her cousin, Antonia Calabrese, and her brother, also cousin to Catwoman named Nick. And they're both part of the family. They're both willing to help out Catwoman here, and so they're part of the team. And apparently Nick has some secrets of his own, according to what Catwoman says, but we're not made privy to him. So they call up Gotham Police Department, and Nick is like, hey, calling up the police is going to leave a trail, and Ward doesn't like that. And Catwoman's like, Ward doesn't like anything I do. Just do it anyway. So we see her enter into the building, and we meet Ward for a second, who's basically this big dude who's just like, Selena, or what, Miss Kyle, what have you been up to? And she's like, don't worry about it. I'm going into the meeting. So she goes in, and all the different heads of families are there. And this recurring motif is in the issue of how Queen Elizabeth, back in the 1500s, ruled on the edge of a blade. And she did it like very forcefully. She got everything in order, and she ushered the country into a new age. And she's being admired by Catwoman for that. So Catwoman's like, okay, we want to know how fast we can sell the cachet of guns that we got. And everyone's like, oh, I mean, I got some guys who will sell and all this other stuff, but who gets the money? Which of the families is going to do it? And they're like, oh, we could sort that out later. But the Catwoman just slams down her fist and be like, nope, the money goes back to Gotham. That's what we're doing here. And we're not going to sell the guns within Gotham itself. We're getting them out of town. And everyone's just like, what? That sounds like we're losing money. Why would we go for that? And it's like, Gotham is broken. Gotham sucks. And we're not going to be able to get any money out of Gotham, period, if we just let it keep on going down the drain. We have to build Gotham up in order to get money back out of it. And Nick explains this well, saying it's exactly what the prior heads of the families did 30 years ago. It's what they got to do now. So they say how the Hasegawas is another clan that is not at this meeting, and they control the docks, and Catwoman's like, don't worry about that, I'll take care of it. So the rest of the families leave. Ward expresses how Miss Kyle, who she keeps on correcting to say Selena, is absolutely furious, saying, like, none of the families like you. Like, you're coming in here, you've never done anything to prove yourself, and you're making all these demands of them. You're going to push this too far, and it's going to break. And like all the Calabrese like bonus that we got here with you coming in is going to be wiped away. And she's just like, okay, well, thank you for your honesty, but at the same time, you're being a bit of a prick. So like, how about you just trust me here and work with me instead of making more problems for me? And he's like, oh, well, I want the family to succeed, and frankly, I don't see you doing that, so excuse me. So he leaves, and Selena says, all right, look, go ahead, see who's sending out the scouts, like who those people that we got in the warehouse were working for, and then we got to go meet up with the Hasegawas. So they go down, meet up with that crime family who literally and stereotypically is doing like all this crazy-ass karate and kung fu stuff. And the Hasegawa guy is like, oh, the Calabrese's here to invite us to their little formal club. And Catwoman's like, you guys don't want to be a part of our club. You're welcome to if you want to come in, but we know that you don't want to. So we're just here to do business with you. And basically, we get introduced to the head of family, whoever he is, and then his daughter, who's named Eiko. And Catwoman's just like, look, we got some guns. We want them to sell off we want to misplace them off the coast if you'd be willing to give us what you can do, and we can get some money flowing throughout it, okay? And he's like, I'll consider it. My daughter will show you out. And the daughter is happy to hear that the guns are being sent out of Gotham, and just like, oh, yes, it's very nice. And Selena comments, oh, yes, by the way, you've got a wonderful tattoo. And she's like, oh, yeah, it's not finished yet. And Selena's like, that's weird. She's daughter of Yakuza, but like doesn't want her tattoo. That means that she's not totally committed to that. So we see that she's going to speak to her father about Selena's cause, and Selena's like talking to Ward, and Ward's just like, all right, I don't know what you're trying to do. And he's just like, then stop trying to understand it. Just go with me here. Then we cut over to GCPD, where we meet up with Alvarez and Keys, who now know Selena's name. They know she's a big player. They don't know she's Catwoman, but that she is a big mob boss. However, because she's actually doing stuff to build up Gotham, none of Alvarez's like uppers want anything to do with this. They want her to just continue to keep doing a good thing because it's making a positive impact on Gotham. And Keys is even like, seriously, man, let it go. Just let it. Don't go after this. And he's like, okay, I will tell you that I'm letting it go. And we see that obviously he's not. So then we see this big diamond jewel necklace thing is about to be unveiled. Catwoman has been invited to the party, and she's like, that's weird. I usually have to sneak into these things, but yeah, I'm here. And she starts like shaking hands with like captain of the police force and director of whatever department. Like, people are happy to see her there. And as she starts maneuvering through the halls trying to get away, Batman comes up being like, hey, Selina, wonder if you'd show up. And she's like, yeah, no, I actually got invited this time. And he's like, why aren't you wearing any jewelry yourself? And she's like, oh, I don't want to clash with the new jewels being unveiled. And her and Batman basically say, like, Batman's worried about you. Batman, I don't want anything to happen. You're on dangerous ground trying to unite these clans. This isn't your family. This isn't you. And Catwoman brushed it off aside, been like, too late. Too little, too late. We've been through all this. We've done all this before. You have absolutely lost your shot here to convince me otherwise. And I'm going to keep on doing this. So then Batman goes off. And Ward's like, hey, I heard what you said. And she's like, oh, is that a threat? And he's like, just being honest with you. And calls her Selina, saying they're on good terms now. So Selina ends up leaving, storms out of the party because she saw some guy following her from one of the other families and just like, yeah, not exactly cool, but whatever. So she leaves and is heading home. Meanwhile, we see down a nearby alleyway is Black Mask and his gang stealing from parked limos. And this guy comes up saying like, wow, Black Mask, you really have fallen far. And he's like, I'm sorry, who are you? And he's like, oh, well, I'm just a guy. I respect your hustle. I respect the greed that you have. And you got a public image issue. I can help you out with that. And he's like, yeah, what are you selling? And he's like, oh, I'm selling you back your view. And he points to all of Gotham. And Black Mask is like, I do want that. So last thing we get here is Catwoman back at her home. She's saying like, yeah, I've made a big name for myself. Things have changed. I'm no longer like the Catwoman I was, but you got to be careful who's following you around nowadays. And we see her look out the window at the Gotham skyline, and sitting on a rooftop, she sees a Catwoman, and she's like, that's weird. But the issue ends there. It's not Ann Nesenti. I mean, I'm down for the intro of this book. I think it actually is setting up a whole lot of interesting plot lines, the different mob boss stuff going on, internal politics, external politics, and a different Catwoman, who I'm sure we'll get answers to very soon. So all in all, I'm enjoying it. I think it's got a lot of potential in this run, and I'm looking forward to see how far out we can ride this. Unfortunately, I can't remember if Catwoman's one that goes to 52. I think it does. So we have at least a whole extra year of this book, and I'm happy for that. So I think I'm going to give this one I'll give it a 7.5. Feeling good about it. Harley Quinn number 11, written by Amanda Cotter and Jimmy Palmiotti, art by Chad Hardin. So, last issue, Harley met up with this dude. I think his name was Mason, and he just disappeared, and then all of a sudden a meteor came out of the sky, but it turns out it wasn't a meteor, it was Power Girl, who is now unconscious. So we open up with Mason, who comes back and meets up with Madame Macabre, who apparently is his mother. And there was a little bit in the last issue of showing how he broke out of jail with her help. Apparently, we're just continuing that plot forward now, saying like, oh yeah, I'm hoping to stay here with you for a little while, but like I can't stay for too long because the cops are of course going to look here for me. And she's like, oh nonsense, we've got plenty of hiding spaces for you. Stay here for as long as you like. In walks Big Tony. And apparently him and Mason have a long history of like running cons together and doing crazy stuff like that. So they end up catching up with each other. And then all of a sudden Tony gets a call on his phone, and it's from Harley, and basically saying, hey, get down to the pier, I need your help. So Mason asks what kind of person Harley's like, and he's just like, oh, she's something, but trust me, she's right up our alley. And so they arrive at the giant crater to find Power Girl and Harley. Power Girl's still unconscious, and Harley's just like, she weighs an actual ton. I need your help getting her back home. And so they pick her up, carry her down. Mason and Harley recognize each other, just like, oh yeah, hey, we small world. What a crazy thing. We ran into each other again. So they get back to Harley's place. They throw Power Girl in bed. And Mason recognizes, like, this is Power Girl, right? And Harley's like, oh, well, it could be anybody that fell from space and didn't get injured. Okay, it's probably Power Girl. So they start trying to flip her over, see if she is actually okay. We get a little bit of backstory on Mason. It's pretty much everything I said before. Just suffice to say that his mother had him young, and then the father dipped, and he hasn't been seen from since. So Tony gets a doctor's bag. He tries listening for Power Girl's heartbeat. Of course, she's got the boob window going on, and so they comment on that. And as he's listening for the heartbeat, he hears it, and she wakes up briefly, smashes the stethoscope, and says, "Where am I? Or she says, "What the? Where am I?" And Harley's like, "Oh, don't worry, you're amongst friends, you're good. What's your name?" And she's like, "I don't know." And then as she tries to get up, she passes back out again. So Harley's like, "Ooh, that's great. I've got an idea. You guys need to get out of here now." So she shoves him out of the room real quick. And Mason's like, "Oh, yeah, well, I'll call you later." And she's like, "Yep, totally. Anyway, bye." So she slams the door. She tries to get off Power Girl's costume. She talks to the beaver. That is a horrible sentence every time I say it. And she's like, "Yeah, my whole idea here is that she doesn't know who she is. She has amnesia. I can convince her that her and I are a superheroic duo. And this could be a whole big new start for me." So she gets off Power Girl's costume, takes it down to whatever the name of the other lady here is. I genuinely don't think we get it. And gets her to sew up matching costumes for her and Harley. And Harley's costume fits like a dream. She's like, "Oh, it's great." And she's even got like the boob window going on as well. And she's like, "Yeah, perfect. But we don't have as much fabric for your friend here, so it's going to be a bit of a tight fit." So her and Harley managed to get the costume onto Power Girl. And she's like, "All right, well, I'm out of here before whatever happens is going to happen." And Harley's like, "Okay, thanks anyway." So she holds Power Girl's nose shut, wakes her up, and the moment Power Girl stands up out of bed, her costume starts tearing, and it just flies off of her. And she's like, "What? What happened? Where's my clothes?" And Harley hands her back the old costume, being like, "Oh, that was just a new costume that we were trying out. It must have shrunk in the wash. Here's your old ones that haven't been cleaned in a while. That's why you weren't wearing them." Anyway, so she points out, like, "Oh, yeah, something feels weird about this suit. Wasn't there something here, like some armor to protect my chest?" And Harley's like, "Nope, no, don't think so. It's not a thing." And they basically, Harley just starts filling in backstory for Power Girl, saying, "Yeah, you are a superhero. You have a secret identity. Your real name is..." I don't even know if they say what the real name is anywhere here. But, it's Betty Burns. However, she is a strong woman in a freak show, and she's known as the Bomb. And she's most powerful woman on Earth who can bend steel. And immediately Power Girl's like, "That doesn't sound right. None of this sounds right at all. Why don't I remember that name?" And she's like, "Oh, well, what about the secret identity? What do I dress up as Betty Burns?" And she's like, "Oh, here it is." And she just pulls out a pair of glasses. And Power Girl's like, "I don't think anyone would fall for this." So she ends up saying, like, "Oh, okay, where's my stuff? Where's my bed? Where's my clothes?" And it's like, "Oh, we just moved here, and it's all in storage, but also it's been destroyed, and don't worry, we'll go out and get new stuff." So they head out to the mall. They decide to start with some new outfits. They go into a Big and Tall store, basically. I believe it has a different name of Husky Honeys. And Power Girl's able to find all these different clothes that she likes, but Harley's like, "None of this stuff fits me. What am I supposed to do?" So then they go next door to Dainty Divas, which is literally just so they can show Power Girl in some even more skimpier outfits. And she's like, "All right, I'm done." So then they go down to the food court. Power Girl's just shoving all this food in her face, and Harley's like, "Oh yeah, we're not rich from our superheroic stuff because you've been wasting all of it on extra food." Yeah, that's it. So at that point, they hear loud banging from nearby. All of a sudden, a bullet goes through Power Girl's cup, hits her on the chest, and she's like, "Hey, someone just shot me. What the heck?" And we see that it is Sportsmaster and Clock King who are trying to rob Dick's Sporting Goods. And just like, "Haha, who do we hit up next, Clock King?" And so Harley and Power Girl take off their civvies, get into their superhero costumes, and they're going to show these fellas what is up. Okay, yeah, it's... This book is so geared towards a teenage boy. I cannot even begin to describe how much of this book is just like, look at the boobs on Power Girl. Yeah, no, I mean, I don't really have much more to say beyond that. It's an all right issue. I know that we set up a whole long thing with Harley and Power Girl because there's even a spin-off series of Harley Quinn and Power Girl. So we'll get there. Beyond that, I'd say this one's mostly just like a 6.5. It's not badly written, but it is something that I have just absolutely no interest in. So keep it up, I guess. Superman number 35, written by Geoff Johns, art by John Romita Jr. So last issue we had Ulysses and Superman going up against the Machinist, and then Ulysses heat visioned the guy and killed him. Except it turns out it was not the Machinist, it was an innocent man being puppeted by the Machinist. So we open up the Daily Planet, and we see a couple of reporters basically just talking to each other, saying like, oh yeah, Superman and Ulysses took out those robots. It is super cool. And like, okay, but like, shouldn't we be asking questions about where the robots came from and like how we should be able to live without Superman if need be? And then the other guy's like, what? Shut up. That's stupid. And then all of a sudden Lois Lane is trouncing by, talking to Perry White, saying like, oh, the Ulysses stories is mine, and it's important that I be able to do it. And he's like, I gave that story to everybody. You don't get any claim over it. And Clark Kent may work at a different paper right now, but I've got a feeling he's going to be back here soon, so you better watch it. And Lois is like smiling about that, because she's like, oh, the Daily Planet's finally getting interesting again. Meanwhile, we cut to where Ulysses and Superman had their fight. Police were on the scene taking pictures of the dead body. Superman's like helping out the police, and he looks over. Ulysses is just curled up in a ball, who's just muttering like, I killed him. I killed an innocent man. And Superman's like, you would have, but he was already dead. And Ulysses is like, what? And he's like, this little bit of tech here, it was basically just puppeting a dead body. Like, he wasn't actually alive. But you need to understand, Ulysses, what you did would have killed him if you were alive and you didn't know that he was already dead. You can't use force like that. And Ulysses is like, oh, but he was going to hurt you. And it's like, doesn't matter. You need to always find another way. No killing stuff, okay? So we've got a little transmitter here that the Machinist was using. We can use that to track down where he is actually located at. And Ulysses is like, right, awesome. We will bring him in alive. So then we cut to the North Atlantic on this giant freighter ship. Machinist sends out what seems to be like a crow or a raven into some heavy rain. The people on the ship are like, Machinist, storm's getting worse. No one's going to be able to get here. And Machinist is like, I just sent word that our buyers need to get here within an hour. And if they really want this payment, they'll be sure to get here. When all of a sudden the ship starts lurching around, and we see that it's Superman Ulysses from underneath, literally lifting the ship up and out of the water. So Machinist realizes like, crap, all right. I'll take care of this. You just leave this to my stuff. And he goes back to one of the freighter like storage containers, opens it up, and a whole bunch of robot birds start coming out. And they are huge. They are like 3 times the size of Superman. So Superman's like, Ulysses, can you hold the ship for a while? I'll take care of this. So he flies out. He starts collecting up all the robot birds. We see Mr. Oz is watching on, saying, all right, Clark, you've got him. Now what are you going to do? So as Ulysses starts straining from the weight of the ship, Superman comes back. He gathered up all the birds into a giant ball and then zapped them with his heat vision. Well, Ulysses uses whatever energy vision he has. So they set down the ship on a nearby coast. Machinist is trying to escape, and they just burn a hole in the hull of the ship, grab Machinist, and Ulysses is like, are we sure that's him? And he's like, I don't know. I'm using my X-ray vision, but something's weird about him. And Machinist is like, so you can see I'm a bit of both. I'm 2 brilliant people fused into one. I didn't want this, but I've long since accepted it. And Superman's like, all right, whatever. Look, just tell us who sold your machines. And Ulysses is like, hold on. Using my powers, I can see all the people he's interacted with. I can see his list of clientele. I'll go ahead and get all of the info we need. And he uses his powers, and he sees tanks and machine guns and war missiles and all this crazy weaponry. And he collapses to the ground. He's like, oh my God, there are guns everywhere on this planet. Why are there so many guns? And Superman's like, oh, that's a tough one. And Ulysses is like, humanity has so many problems that are common threats, like disease and famine. Why do they have so many weapons to fight each other? That doesn't make it. We got to round them all up. We got to throw them into the sun. And Superman's like, we can't do that, man. We got to let people make their choices. Like, our goal is to stop the crazy people and like the inherently bad people like this guy, and hope other people lead by example. And Ulysses is like, and what, they just hope? How many people have actually laid down their guns? He's like, a couple, some, yes. And he's like, and what, we're just going to keep on suffering, and everybody else who doesn't want to do this? My parents wanted to escape this planet, and I'm kind of getting why. And then Ulysses just flies off. When Superman's left with Machinist, and Machinist is like, the world's never going to stop wanting weapons, and therefore I'm always going to be around, Superman. That's what Mr. Oz said. And then all of a sudden the ship blows up, and Superman's like, what the hell? What's a Mr. Oz? So he grabs part of Machinist's like mask, and then we follow Ulysses as he flies around the world, sees all the horrors and atrocity mankind has caused, World War II memorial, stuff like that. And he's like, all right, well, I'm just done with this. So we cut over to his parents' place. They're on the phone with Clark, and Clark's like, hey, if you hear from him at all, please give me a call back, like, immediately. He's finding out some hard truths about humanity. So then we see the parents get a knock at the door, and it turns out it's Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen. And they just literally slam the door in their faces. Meanwhile, Perry comes around to Clark, and he's like, hey, Clark, you got that Ulysses story? And he's like, I mean, I got some stuff, but I'm not sure if it's ready to publish yet. And then as he's saying that, all of a sudden, every TV on Earth gets interrupted by Ulysses, saying, hi, you know me as Ulysses. My real name is Neil Quinn, and here's my entire backstory. And Perry's like, dude, did you know all this? Now the story's out. We don't have anything to publish. You're fired, Kent. Not actually that last part, but most of it. And so Ulysses continues on, and he's like, look, I came from a dimension where it was peace and love and everything was cool. Like, yeah, there were some bad guys, but like, we all collectively came together as a group. And like, I see your Earth and I think, wow, that sucks. So I am offering up to 6 million people can jump on my super magic starship, and the sky opens up. It's a Terran reality. And he's like, I've got something, and I'm willing to take you through to my other dimension. 6 million people. Will you be one of them? And that's where it ends. That was fast. Here's the thing. You know, just based off of like the concept that Ulysses clearly has to at least turn somewhat evil. He has to be at odds with Superman. I just kind of expected it to be like a little longer, but nope, here's this thing. And to be fair, I like it from the viewpoint where he's saying, like, I'm not asking these people to change. I'm asking for the people who already get it if they'd like to leave. And Superman, I'm sure he's going to have some reasoning as to why that's not okay, but like, on paper, it sounds okay. On paper, it's like, would you guys like to bounce? You want to get out of here? This planet is a creep. Stop talking to it. But yeah, overall, honestly, I kind of didn't mind the art this issue. There's a few very iffy faces. That's never going to stop with JRJR, but the writing's good. The pacing's good. I really like the intro of Ulysses just curled up in a corner, because that takes like a good 2 pages before there's any dialogue between them at all. So it's a solid one. I'm going to say this is probably... It's just shy of the 8, but it's very close. I'm going to give it a 7.5. It's got a lot of promise for where we can go from here. Aquaman number 35, written by Geoff Parker, art by Paul Pelletier. So, kind of the start of a new arc entirely here, but the little bit that you need to know going into it is that Atlantis has been having a lot of sea quakes, and nobody seems to know why. And also there was a plot to murder Arthur and Mara. So we open up with Arthur basically saying, like, you know, my entire backstory, like, I just kind of blindly accepted, like, I was wondering who I was. And they said, not only are you from Atlantis, you're king of Atlantis. And I'm like, oh, that's neat. And then I didn't really dig any deeper than that, but maybe I should, because there's so much more here. And we see Dr. Stephen Shin. He's at home. He's being contacted by Triton Base, which obviously he abandoned recently since they did horrific human trials of like scientific weirdness. And as he's leaving his house, he sees that his niece is graduating from school, and he is approached by a guy from Triton Base. And he's like, look, you guys are crazy. I don't want anything to do with you. Triton guy's like, okay, but you have a lot of confidential information, and we're going to need you to come with us. When all of a sudden, Salty, the dog, and the one police officer lady who's the only one in Amnesty Bay, seemingly, is like, oh, are you accosting this fine citizen? You better watch your back, sir. That's worth jail time. And he's like, oh, I'll come back later. We'll be in touch, Dr. Shin. You better swear on it. And so Shin gets arrived from the police officer, and he's like, oh, thanks so much, but like, they're not going to be put off for much longer. I don't know if I can stay here. And she's like, well, good news. You're being requested down at the pier by a very important individual. And we see that it is Aquaman and a bunch of Atlantean guards in a giant Atlantean ship. And he's like, hey, Dr. Shin, here's the deal. I am willing to let you have a 6-month visa to come down to Atlantis and study whatever you want, but you need to give me an answer now. And Shin's just like, am I still dreaming? Is this morphine? Like, seriously? So he hops onto the ship and gets introduced to Daniel Evans, who was the other guy that was introduced in a couple of Aquaman issues earlier. he's also researching Atlantis, and they're both going to be working together. And Shin's just basically like, why? Why are we doing it? What's changed all of a sudden? And Aquaman's like, look, Atlanteans are really proud of their history to the point where they don't really question it. I need somebody to look through the documents and tell me why Atlantis keeps on having these sea quakes. And he establishes, it's been going on. It's something about Atlantis itself rejecting a surface-dwelling ruler. I know I'm half Atlantean, but it seems like that's not enough. But I want you to dig into the details and tell me why that is an issue. Why does Atlantis know that it's me there, And they say a couple of other things of saying like, oh, well, if we know that about Atlantis, then we'll also know, like, why can Zebellians be able to move water? Why is all this stuff? Basically, we're getting the full Aquaman lore dump if we can figure out this answer. So at that point, Shin looks outside the window. Him and Evans are seeing the city of Atlantis, and they're like, oh my God, it's everything I dreamed it would be. So as they come up on the place, all of a sudden another seaquake happens. They lock down Shin and Evans in the ship as Aquaman goes out and tries to keep everything going. Some prisoners are like, oh, our glorious king has returned to free us. And it's like, no, it's just a seaquake. Stop it. So that one was a little bit lighter than usual. It's just one statue got knocked over. They set it back up. And Mara points out, like, oh, this is the statue of the royal line. And there's your mother, which means that your statue should be literally right next to him. And Aquaman's like, yeah, I know, they're requesting permission to do that. It feels weird to me. And they're also kind of requesting your permission as well for Mara, because you're going to be part of this. You're part of the royal line once you marry in. So at that point, we go over to the prisoners, the ones who try to kill Aquaman and Mara. And we see Tula is there basically saying, all right, all prisoners, get into the vortex that Mara is making. She's got this huge funnel thing going up and out. And she's like, what? No, we're not. She's going to feed us to a monster or something. Mara's like, oh, it wasn't really a request. And I was trying to let you have some dignity. So they get sucked up into the vortex and brought up and out into the surface. And they land on a ship that Aquaman has parked up there. And he's like, you guys will be fine. Atlanteans can live up here too. But here's the thing. My council is the one who decides whether or not you guys should be punished. And they say that you absolutely should be punished to the fullest extent of the law for trying to kill and commit treason. However, I am still a monarch, therefore I have final say, and while I do agree that you should be punished, I don't want to be quite so draconian about it. I am hereby exiling you, and I am sending you to a place near Antarctica. There are some thermal vents there that will give you food and sustenance and warmth. You'll be fine. We're also giving you a boat that we will sink, and you can use that as the basis for your new society. And they're like, whoa. You want us to be like a colony for Atlantis after we just, like, we hate you. We don't want anything to do with you. And it's like, no, you're not a colony. You're a new country. Do whatever you want. You want to swear eternal revenge? Fine, whatever, do it. But, like, you have a chance to start a totally new society here. Do you really want to base it off of fear and anger? And they're all just like, okay, we see the point. So we then go into the library where Shin and Evans are researching. We get an old Atlantean guy there. He's like, oh, man, it's great. I love it. We haven't gone through the library scrolls in forever. And as they're looking through, they come across this thing of a shell called an Elder's Key. And all the members of the council have one. And they're like, that marking is on the wall. Have you ever held your key up to the wall marking? And it's like, no. And it's like, well, let's try it. So they put it up there. And then immediately, like, crazy screaming spirit heads start engulfing the room. And they're like, oops, we may have caused a problem again. So we then see Aquaman's talking with his council, having some dinner. They're commending him on giving a good speech and letting them go. Even if it might cause problems later, it won a lot of political points. And he's like, I wasn't even thinking about that, but, like, I'm super glad it's happening. And then Shin and Evans come up and they're like, hey, Arthur, we gotta tell you something here. And he's basically like, all right, so you know how to stop the quakes? And it's like, I mean, yes. If you just stay outside the city limits, you'll be fine. Like, it's just past the armory. Go that far and the city won't care. But bigger problem here. Whenever an Atlantean dies, their soul, or whatever you want to call it, goes back into Atlantis via electrical impulses. It becomes part of the system. And that's what allows Atlantis to recognize who's in charge. Like, it's a constantly updating thing. You're right in that it doesn't like that surface dwellers are able to become king. However, it should have been willing to accept you because you are of royal blood. However, for some reason, when your mother died, when she was assassinated, her spirit did not go into Atlantis, and therefore it didn't update the fact that you are the rightful ruler, and therefore it doesn't recognize you as the rightful heir. Like, it's still trying to kick you out. And the only reason Atlantis hasn't been torn apart is because you are part Atlantean. So, like, did something weird happen with your mom? Like, did she get assassinated elsewhere? Like, maybe she got pulled into some other thing? Like, what's going on? And Aquaman just takes off, goes to his mother's tomb, and Mara's like, what's going on? What are you doing? And he's like, I need to do this. And he kicks off the lid, and inside of the tomb, it is empty. The body of Atlanta is not there. Dun dun dun. I like a good mystery. I'm good with that. I also like the lore dump. If it manages to stay consistent and not outwardly like throw something weird into the Atlantean mythology, I'm down with whatever they want to play with here. Beyond that, no, it's a solid issue, solid art. I really like the way that they play up Arthur's character here as a kind ruler who wants what's best for Atlantis and the surface world as a whole. So overall, I'm going to give this one an 8. I really think it's a solid start to this Maelstrom arc that's going on, and I'm curious to see where it continues on from here. The Flash number 35, written by Robert Venditti and Jensen, art by Brett Booth. So this is the only book that had the Futures End stuff matter. This one picks up right after the Futures End issue in Central City, where in the Futures End tie-in, Future Flash ran back to slightly less Future Flash's time, killed him accidentally, quote unquote, and then Wally West of that 5 years in the future swore vengeance and also got Flash powers. So this one we pick up with Future Flash coming back to actual modern day now times. He has no idea how it's happened because he shouldn't have been able to get back here. And then all of a sudden this dude in the car is like, hey, Flash, with your stupid fancy suit, get out of the road. I'm in a hurry. And then Future Flash just like slams down on his car and be like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm trying to save reality here. But no, I get it. You're in a hurry. My bad. And the guy's just like, okay, sorry, I didn't mean it. So Flash checks some of his computer stuff, says that he made it back to the time he wants, and then he runs off to go do his thing. We meet up with Barry, current Barry, waking up, just doing his morning routine, gives Patty a kiss, runs out, eats some breakfast, and before he can do literally anything, Future Flash runs in, grabs him, and says, all right, we gotta talk, and just takes him outside the house. So they run all the way to the Utah Salt Flats, and they say, yeah, this is where Daniel West went and like messed with time and stuff like that. So you're Daniel, I take it. And Future Flash is like, no, I'm not Daniel. You know who I am. But look, here's the thing. This isn't even because of him. This is the monorail, Elias's monorail back that was charged by Speed Force energy. When it crashed here, it broke the Speed Force. It punctured it, and that's why everything's been going wrong. And Flash is like, that doesn't even make sense. I've been traveling through time. And Flash is like, yeah, and it's been messing stuff up a lot. Like, people keep on dying because we keep on slipping through time. And Flash is like, how do you know? Wait, what do you mean we? And Future Flash is like, look, hold on, I'll show you. And he like vibrates or does something, and he manages to show the wound in the Speed Force itself, which is this giant red lightning bolt shape that is sucking in and spitting out energy. And it's like, yeah, that's time and space. It's literally bleeding out, but at this point in time, it can be fixed. It is something that can actually work. And current Flash is like, okay, hold on. Who are you? How do you know all this? And he's like, you know who I am. I'm you in the future, but like, you let Wally die, and that's what led to all this. He's like, no, I would never let Wally die. He's like, yeah, well, clearly, that's what happened. So yeah, we know how to fix it now. The tear is fixable at this exact point in time. All we need is a large enough detonation of Speed Force energy, and theoretically, it could seal it off, like cauterizing a wound. And current Flash is like, all right, I'm super tired, but like, I trust myself, and you are clearly me, so all right, I'll help you if I can. And Future Flash is like, good, because you're integral to all this. And then he just starts punching out Barry, and Barry's like, what the hell? What is wrong with you, man? I said I would help. And he's like, yeah, you're a vessel of the Speed Force, and when you die, all of that energy will erupt out of you. That's the only way to get enough energy out, so I'm gonna kill you. And Flash is like, no, there has to be another way. And he starts going into like fight Future Flash. Future Flash is like, somewhere in the 5-year period, or 20 years, I think it is actually, I learned that I needed to actually be able to fight rather than just moving really fast. So I trained under Lady Shiva and Deathstroke and Batman. And so I can beat the ever-loving crap out of you, no problem now. And so he does. And Barry's like, But if you kill me, it'll also be the end of you. This is Back to the Future rules, right? He actually says that. And Future Barry's like, nah, man, I'm here now. Like, that doesn't change anything. It's parallel timelines. It's not going to kill me. So he also says that the rupture, no matter what place in time you go to, it can't be undone. It's always going to exist. So they have to seal it off here while it's still small somehow. So current Barry then gets out his Flash costume, runs into Future Barry, tries to fight him, but Future Barry's still like, seriously, dude, you're just running really fast, and that doesn't work against me. I can fight better than you, and I'm going to take you out. And he starts like slamming Barry around. And he's also able to do like seeming feats of super strength. And he's like, oh yeah, by the way, I've made some upgrades to my suit. I'm not going to tell you about them, but I don't show it off like Plague or Overload. Oh, right, you don't even know those guys yet. Hint, hint. They're going to be in future comics. So he holds up current Barry to the tear in the Speed Force. It starts like supercharging their energy or whatever. And Barry's like, what are you doing, man? And he's like, oh, I'm charging you up as the more and more Speed Force energy from us touching is going to build up because we shouldn't be in the same time together. And once it grows big enough, then you'll explode and it'll be big enough to cauterize the wound. And as he's saying all this, all of a sudden, someone rushes in, removes his grip on Barry, sends Barry flying off to the side, and Future Flash is like, hold on, wait, another speedster? Who's this? In comes future Wally West, dressed as the Flash in his silver and red suit, saying, I'm the good West. And Future Flash is like, whoa, hold up, bro, you're alive? Seriously? And he's like, yeah, and I saw what you did in the Future's End tie-in. You're a monster. You killed my Flash, and therefore I have trained and I have learned how to go back in time in order to stop you here. And Barry's like, look, if you ever trusted me, man, you got to trust me that I'm doing the right thing here now. Please let me finish this. And he's like, nope, not going to happen. So Future Flash and Wally start fighting. Wally, however, has trained, I guess, a bit more. He manages to get the upper hand on Future Flash and knocks him away. We see Barry is almost unconscious, but his like energy is too unstable at this point. It's definitely going to blow. All he needs is a little spark. So Future Flash throws, I don't know, some energy beams or something at him. Who cares? It starts making its way towards Barry, but then Wally jumps in the way, seemingly sacrificing himself again. So then future Wally, next to Barry, who's overloading, says, hey, by the way, I learned another trick in the future. I can absorb other people's Speed Force energy. I'm going to take yours, therefore you'll be alive. And so he takes over all the excess energy. He starts exploding. Current Barry's like, who the hell are you, man? And he's like, oh, but I always hated you, Barry, for my uncle, but I knew I was wrong. You don't give up on me. I'm only a hero because I learned it from you. And then future Wally explodes in a massive blast of energy, sealing the wound and seemingly sending current Barry somewhere else in time, which then leaves future Barry there, who's upset that he actively killed Wally again, but also apparently now he's stuck in this time. He can't get back to his own future anymore. Then we cut to far, far away, theoretically somewhere in time, because Barry wakes up to a dinosaur attacking him. He goes to run. His speed is gone, so he can't get away. But all of a sudden, a robot shows up. It says exterminate, kills the dinosaur, and then notices Barry and says exterminate again. So we're doing something. Dinosaur Island, maybe? Back in time? I don't know. We could literally go anywhere with Flash's powers. I mean, it's an ending. It's an ending to the story. Obviously, Future Flash is still in the time. Maybe we'll do some stuff with him later on, but like, it's kind of weird that he ran all that way back to the past. He pretty much succeeded, and then it was just like something that had nothing to do with current Barry at all is what saved him. Like, I don't hate it. Obviously, we're introducing Wally as the Flash here, but like, it's weird. It's structured in a weird way. The fact this has been going on for so long, and then it's like, and then he just picked up Barry from his house during breakfast, and then everything just kind of happened to him rather than him doing anything reactive. I mean, again, not a horrible issue. I think I'm probably going to end up with a flat 7 on it, but ultimately, I don't know what I was really expecting out of this plot. I kind of just expected it to go longer, I guess is my biggest concern here, but it did what it did, so 7 for that. Secret Origins number 6, written by a bunch of people because we got 3 different stories going on here. The first is Wonder Woman, written by Brian Azzarello and Cliff Chiang, art by Goran Sudzuka. It's written as a very Golden Age story, as if this is a reprint from an old Golden Age book. And we open with young Diana facing off against, I always forget her name, Alika? Yes. And she's saying, I'm tired of being a girl. And then they start like grappling with each other. And it's played with a little bit of sexual tension over the whole thing, but also just like a grappling match between the two. And they're saying like, oh, we've always been bitter rivals, but maybe we can be best of friends and all this other stuff. And Diana says, oh, I have feelings that you wouldn't understand. Alika's like, oh, like what? So say. And as they're fighting, she says, I don't want to stay on this island. And Alika's like, oh, but you're our princess. And Diana's like, oh, you say I'm a princess now, but was I not clay to you before? And then we get the backstory saying Hippolyta went down to a beach. She was grieving. She couldn't have kids. She made a clay child and then prayed for life for it. And then turns out that didn't happen because Zeus was the one she was having an affair with. And they gave birth to half-god Diana. And we see Hippolyta watching the fight from afar, saying, oh, I will never tell you the truth because Hera would kill you if she knew that you were born and that you were Zeus's daughter, and I won't let anything happen to you. So Alika says, all right, do you give up? She says, never. They tackle each other to the ground, and Diana's like, look, can I make a confession? Alika says, yes, of course, anything, princess. And she's like, oh, I made up my mind. I'm going to leave. I'm going to join a different part of the world. And basically saying like, or Alika's basically saying, how can you do that? Like you give up on your own people and you think your mom's gonna let it happen? And Diana's like laughing it off, but Alika is pretty upset by this, saying like, please, like seriously, don't go. As your friend, don't go. And Wonder Woman's just like, I gotta do it. And she's like, fine, whatever, turn your back on us. And she runs off in tears, calls her clay as she leaves. We see later that night Hippolyta's putting Diana to bed, and she's like, look, seriously though, like let's pump the brakes on the whole going to man's world thing. You may think it's cool, but it's not. It sucks. But like if you really want to go, like maybe we can make a weekend of it together, you know? And Diana's like, oh yeah, that'd be nice. And as soon as Hippolyta leaves, she's like, no, that would suck. And so she's lying awake. She's so upset about everyone wants her to be this certain thing, princess of the Amazon. She wants to trudge her own path. And then all of a sudden, Athena comes in. She looks like an owl. She's just a human owl. And she's like, oh, dear Diana, I hear your thoughts. And Diana's like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to betray my sisters. And she's like, no. Your thoughts about leaving are cool. Like, live up to your own potential. You know, you're good. Keep doing that. I'm not going to, like, do anything for it. But you got my approval. And then she just flies off. As that happens, we see Steve Trevor in the jet, flying over Bermuda Triangle, and he's like, Bermuda Triangle, who cares about that? And all of a sudden the winds start really getting mixed up, the engines sputter out, and he crash lands onto Paradise Island, and as he stumbles out of the plane, Diana's there, and he's like, where am I? She's like, you're the only man on an island of beautiful women. He's like, oh, it must be paradise. And she's like, oh, so you've heard of it before. So he comments how strong she is for a woman, and she's like, okay, well, that's kind of ignorant, but whatever. And so he gets brought over to the Amazons, and they're just like, well, what the hell is that? And she's like, it's my ticket out of here. And then we see Athena from afar going, tee-hee, did I do that? So that's that one. I will say the illustrations look very nice. The writing, it's a little bit hokey in Golden Age, but it works for the fact that it's a flashback to an earlier time. I'd say this is a solid 7.5. Next, we cut over to Dead Man, which is done by JMD Mateus and Kevin Stokes on the art. We got a bickering couple, like violently abusive to each other, and we see a young boy, Boston Brand, who's just trying to shut it out, and he tries to picture himself going to like Neverland, a magical place where people are kind. But over time, by the time he hits 16, he's just fed up with it. He goes out, he clocks his dad, he says, both of you suck, I'm out of here, and he runs off to the circus because something about it just enraptures him. He's so thrilled by it. And he starts from the bottom, scooping elephant poo, and goes up into the acrobatics career. And as he gains more and more of a following, he doesn't really ever let go of his anger. He's like punching out and arguing with coworkers, also drinking a lot. And whenever there are kids around, he always softens up. He's like, oh, hey, yeah, everything's fine. Eventually, he takes on the dead man persona, full mask and everything. And in the middle of one of his performances, he gets shot in the chest and he falls to his death. We then see he goes to a place in the in-between where he meets up with a deity called Rama. And Rama's just like, hey, you were killed, but I'm going to give you a chance to do something more here, okay? You can go around possessing other people's bodies and like altering the arc of their lives, give them hope to the hopeless. And so he does that. But then, as we saw in DC Universe Presents, the very first arc in that, beginning of New 52, he was basically told that Rama is a sham and you shouldn't trust Rama. And so he goes to confront Rama. Rama gets pissed off and basically tells him, like, all right, screw you. No, you just get out of here. So Boston's not sure what to do with himself anymore. He goes to his parents' graves and they start reforming as like ghosts around him, but they're all messed up. They're just not able to be there. And Boston's like, whatever, I don't even forgive you. You guys suck. I hate you. And then all of a sudden behind them appears a new godlike entity. And this one's name is Brahma Das. And Deadman goes to attack because he just thinks it's Rama again. He's like, no, I'm a different one. And I've had plenty of identities throughout the ages. Come with me to Nanda Parbat. And they get teleported there, and Deadman's like, this feels familiar. Why does this feel familiar? And we realize at a different point over in Justice League Dark that he used to come here all the time as a kid when he was dreaming of Neverland. This is the place that he was brought to by Brahma Das. And Brahma's like, hey, this place seems great, but I'm kind of a total dick, so I don't know why you're giving me this cool thing. And he's like, what? No, you're just human. Like, whatever Rama told you about your life is wrong. Like, you were fine. Don't worry about that stuff. So I'm actually going to give you the chance right now. You can go back to, you can move on. You can go to the realm of the dead. You can find your peace. You can do all that. Or I'm going to let you continue on with this life that you got going on, but you can just help the world as you see fit from that pale in between life and death. You can do whatever you want. Okay? You don't have to like actually help people because you are impelled to do it. And he's just like, okay, well, I do want to be good, and like maybe doing good can help me become good as well. So he says that he'll go back to the land of the living, but then before he goes, he does see the soul of his parents again, this time smiling and happy. He gives them a hug, he forgives them at long last, and we see he joins into the Justice League Dark and does all their big adventures. So there's that. It's nice. I think the art style is a little bit hit or miss for me. It does work for Deadman. It's just a little bit strange for me personally. I think this is probably closer to a... I'll still give it like a flat 7. I think it's all right. Then we move on to Sinestro, written by Cullen Bunn, art by Igor Lima. We see Sinestro's playing with a bunch of knockoff Legos. He's just building cities. His parents come in, because he's like 6, and they're just like, oh, hey, man, you... Our your parents are going out. The servants will be here if you need anything. And they accidentally knock over a tower and they're like, whatever, man. Don't worry about it. Everything's cool. And Sinestro's all pissed off. And he's just like, look, I know my parents meant well, but like, they don't care about my interests. They don't care about that. Like all of the Core Guardians of the time, they were more interested in trivial pursuits rather than the big things that like they should have been interested in, like the history of our people. And we see him go out to these ancient ruins and he's looking through everything. And he's trying to understand how such a majestic empire could have fallen and it's just be gone and wiped off the map. And all of a sudden a rocket ship shows up and starts crashing right into the ruins. He goes over, checks it out. He's like, hi. The guy inside is like bruised up, beaten, bloody. And he's like, my name is Prolgogatha. I got a magic ring. You got to put it on and defend yourself because we got people coming inbound. Okay, do that. And we see this dude comes in. He's a weaponer of Quard, and he's like, oh, I claim this kill. The prize is mine. And he sends Sinestro flying away with an electrical blast. The ring all of a sudden just appears on his finger, and he's like, what? I didn't put this on. But all right, the dude said it was a defensive weapon. Let's go with that. And so he's able to start wielding the ring. He's crafting things via his willpower, not even knowing how he's doing it, but his thoughts take form, and he's able to fight back the weaponer of Quard. And all the ruins are destroyed in the battle, and he's upset about that. And the dude in the ship is like, hey, you did it. You defended us. Cool. Let me have back the ring, because its life support functions will let me continue to live, and I can, like, get better. And Sinestro's like, but no. And so he just straight up says, like, yes, natural selection, bro. I'm taking the ring. So he goes before the Guardians. He becomes a Green Lantern, one of the greatest of all time. He trains Hal Jordan. He is a friend of Jordan's. He sees him as a best friend. We see he also gets a wife, has a kid, tries to keep all that separate from Jordan, not letting him know. But then eventually he's just like, that Empire stuff seemed really cool. So he decides to test out some of his more authoritarian leanings on New Korugar. He institutes multiple different laws trying to keep the planet quote-unquote safe. And in doing so, he has dissent. The planet rises up against him, kills his wife, and the rest of the Green Lantern Corps is led against him by Hal Jordan because Hal thinks he's gone totally nutso crazy. So Sinestro is sent to the antimatter universe back over to Quard. They figured that Quard would just straight up kill him because, like, they hate all of the Green Lantern stuff. However, as soon as Sinestro arrived, he's like, no, I hate the Guardians too. Let's team up. And they make him a yellow ring that runs off of fear. And they're like, you like it? Is it good? And he's like, can you make me a whole bunch more? So we see, all the events of old school Green Lantern, him going up against Hal, just wielding yellow energy and whatnot, dressed as old Sinestro. And then eventually, Hal Jordan became Parallax. He was infused with the Fear entity. Sinestro Corps was made. New Korugar was blown up during the Third Army stuff. And then Sinestro absorbed Parallax, became the entity of Fear, and killed all the Guardians. And that basically leads up to now, where Sinestro is meditating in front of his new Sinestro Corps. He's got a bunch of Lego bricks out of his construct energy, and his guys are like, what the hell is he doing, man? Why is he playing with Lego? That doesn't make any sense. And we see Lyssa Drax is like, no, this is how he dreams. And we see him building some sort of city or a tower out of that, and it says, how does one man ensure that as a regime falls, his own empire will take its place? I've seen the Sinestro story like 4 times already. This doesn't really add anything new to it. It's got a couple of things like the Lego and the stuff when he was a child, but all in all, that barely lasts a few pages. So not a bad story. It's just one I've heard like 24 times just in the New 52. So I'm going to give this one I'll give it a flat 7 as well. It's not anything new, but also not anything bad. And that's Secret Origins. Star-Spangled War Stories featuring G.I. Zombie number 3, written by Justin Gray and Jimmy Palmiotti, art by Scott Hampton. So, last issue we opened, or closed I should say, with a missile. Has some sort of payload on it, making its way to Washington, D.C. G.I. Zombie's on it. He manages to get it off course, but it crash lands somewhere in a small town called Sutterville, Tennessee. So we open up in Sutterville, little kid's playing with a jar of fireflies. He's like, look, Mommy, I made a nightlight. And then all of a sudden he sees the missile falling out of the sky. The jar falls, crashes open. We then cut over to an animal hospital and watch as the missile collides into it, and just cats and dogs running everywhere as the fires engulf the building. And G.I. Zombie says, okay, here's the deal. Inside of this missile is a payload, a genetic payload that has a virus that will turn anything that it touches into a mindless zombie. And that's anything organic at all. And it spread via like biting. So we see already some animals are like scared of G.I. Zombie as he lands. A snake goes to bite him. Some dogs attack him. And he's just like, all right, this sucks. But like, I need to know what's going on here. Hopefully, they've got control of the terrorists back at the base that they were at. Cut back over to the base in Mississippi, and they realize, okay, the missile crash landed in Tennessee. That's a whole thing we got going on. They try to basically threaten the leader of the terrorist cells. I think it was Duke, was his name. Basically saying, hey, what was on it? And he's like, oh, whatever, man. It's all the end anyway. We're all dead. And Gravedigger, the superior officer of G.I. Zombie, is just like, all right, we got to get out there. Does anyone have a view on Agent King, a.k.a. Carmen, who was being sent to another facility by Duke's men just before it was all raided by the feds? So she's making her way across country with, I'm sure she has a name, but God, I couldn't even tell you who it is. And she's basically asking questions just like, oh, the government was attacking our farm? That's crazy. What's going to happen to Duke? And she's like, oh, Duke's got tons of friends in high places. We got more lawyers than Wall Street. Don't worry about it. And she's like, oh, that's cool. You said something about the end. is that like literal or like metaphysical or whatever? And she's like, oh, you saw that missile? It's got a payload on it. Like, we're talking pretty physical here. So at that point, they enter into a diner. They realize that they're not going to be able to get the whole way to where they need to be, so they're going to get a motel and whatnot. As they're sitting and talking, the other woman basically is just like, look, you're new, so Duke seems to trust you. I'm willing to share a little bit, but like I'm not willing to go too deep onto the everything details, nothing personal. She's like, no, I get it. Oh, cool. Then this dude shows up and is just like, hey, pretty ladies, you want to come over with me and my friend? And she's like, no, thank you. And he's like, what, are you two lesbians? And then the other girl gets super pissed, threatens the guy with a knife, and then he takes the hint, backs off, and the other girl's like, so like, are you a lesbian though? And Carmen's like, no. And she's like, damn, that sucks. All right. So then we go over to Tennessee. And we see a cop is trying to round up the dogs that have escaped. He gets attacked and bitten by one of them. The other cop trying to free his arm from the dog's bite, hits it over the head with his nightclub, snapping its neck, but the dog doesn't stop. He just keeps on growling with like a crooked sideways neck. And so the cop has to shoot him to put him down. And as the cop is making his way over to an ambulance, he immediately like falls to the ground. He feels like he's going to puke. And as he comes back up, he's growling, he's rabid, and he starts trying to bite the ambulance worker. So already things are going badly. G.I. Zombie comes across it a few minutes later. He's like, oh, Christ, I've seen all this before. And he sees a cat trying to bite at his ankle. And he's like, okay, it's spread by bites. I get it. Hey, can I borrow your cell phone real quick? He says to a nearby guy. The guy starts growling at him. He's like, cool. Punches the dude out, takes his cell phone, calls up Gravedigger. Gravedigger's busy at the moment, so he's like, fine, whatever. Have him call me back at this number. So G.I. Zombie's dragging the firefighter that he knocked out through the streets. Eventually, a cop comes up and is just like, hey, you better let him go. And he's like, hey, this dude is infected. I'm not. You need to put the gun away and help me get to a doctor's office. And there's this like, oh, well, there's a clinic right down the road. What's going on? And he's like, don't worry about it. You need to get you and like any family you have back into your house, lock the doors. The army's on the way. So we see him get down to the clinic. The clinic's got a gun trained on him. And he's like, look, I kind of look bad, but I'm definitely not one of these zombies. I do have one here. We should strap him down and see if we can figure out what's going on about it. So they look him over. They're like, yeah, he's brain dead. There's nothing going on upstairs. This is literally all just like base impulses that's got him going on. So there's no coming back from whatever this is. The only thing is to stop it from spreading as far as we can. And they realize like, okay, we got to put this guy out of his misery. And the clinic doctors are like, what? We're not going to kill this guy. Like, he may already be brain dead, but like, we're not going to put him down. He's like, you're right. That's inhumane. The army's going to be here soon. They'll take care of it. So at that point, Gravedigger finally gets back to him on the phone. And he's like, hey, yeah, look, we need you to do as much as you can here. Find somebody who knows the town. Tell us where you're going to be at. We'll handle the different points of exit, but you got to let us know what's going on there. And he's like, right, totally. I'll just find someone in this hellscape of a town that's going to know what's going on. So all of a sudden a truck crashes in through the clinic. Everyone realizes they got to get going. We see the dude who had the gun at the clinic doesn't know how to use it. So he passes over to G.I. Zombie, and they continue to get moving there. By the way, G.I. Zombie's name is Jared. It doesn't really matter to the story, but I never remember it. Jared. Anyway, so we see him talking to the clinic guys and saying, hey, you got like a mayor or like some cops, someone who knows like, you know, the general everything about how to get in and out of the city. And they're like, well, we got 2 cops and we got a mayor that's just down the street. And he's like, well, those 2 cops are definitely gone. One of them's bitten and the other one is like not much better. He's locked up. So point me to the mayor's house. So he gets in the mayor's house. Mayor opens with a shotgun and he's like, hi, I may look like a zombie, but I speak perfect English. So clearly I'm not one. He's like, good enough for me. Gets into the house. All of his loved ones are also holding like AKs and it's just like, yep, God bless America. So the mayor gives the layout of the town. He says there's a main road that goes out to the north and there's one at the south, but that's a bridge. So that's all you really need to worry about in terms of this spreading by any meaningful disregard. So he calls up Gravedigger, said that's what's going on. You guys can take care of the north. I'll go down to the south bridge. Mayor gives him some stronger firepower, to which as he approaches the south bridge, he sees there's already a bunch of zombies on it, including a rabid dog. He ends up shooting the dog, putting it down, and then the people start coming. he only has a few shots in the shotgun, not enough to take them all out, when all of a sudden, airplane comes in, bombs the ever-loving crap out of the bridge, so that's just done. He has to dive out of the way for the explosion. But it seems the explosion has attracted attention, and suddenly he is surrounded by a bunch of zombies and absolutely no ammo left. So he pulls the knife, he starts going crazy, slicing and dicing, do what he can, but he very quickly gets overwhelmed, and we see the entire crowd descending upon him. I gotta say, if you told me last issue that by the time we hit the end of the next issue, we would have a zombie apocalypse, wouldn't have believed you. But no, here we are. It's very well done. I think that knowing how short this series is, we got the 8 issues plus the Future's End tie-in. I kind of like this. I kind of like how fast-paced we're moving here. I do also kind of hope that we don't wrap up the zombie apocalypse thing. Like, I hope that it's the plot for the whole story, but I'm kind of guessing that at how fast we're moving here, it's going to be done by next issue. So here's hoping we can at least explore it a few more, but if we don't, it's at least been an entertaining ride thus far. I'm going to say this one is I'll give it a 7.5. I don't know what it's missing to really cross that 8 barrier. It's just not quite hitting it for me. So 7.5. Infinity Man and the Forever People number 4, written by Dan DiDio and Keith Giffen, art also by Keith Giffen. So last issue, bro, I don't even know. Infinity Man as a concept got back to New Genesis, and Hyman got very upset about that and decided to send in what's-his-name's girlfriend, who's a total bitch, and then a boom tube blew up and something went wrong with the mother box. Yeah, whatever. So we open up outside of a farm and we see that the boom tube is causing this massive explosion, and all of a sudden the Infinity people have, or, Forever people have shown up in this field, and they're like, oh, something disrupted our boom tube right in mid-transit. We're lucky to even still be alive. And they get up out of the rubble. They look around once they realize everybody's safe. And they're like, cool, we shouldn't dig boom tubes anymore. That seems to be a lot of trouble for us. And they come across a sign seeing that they are at a Wayne Enterprises dairy farm somewhere in Northern California. So it's like, all right, well, we just need to go a little bit south. And they look around seeing if they can find anything. One guy is looking for the mother box when, for whatever reason, in this random dairy field is Bat Cow. For those not familiar, Bat Cow is a cow that was adopted by Damian Wayne. And I guess now he's just out in the field, continuing to wear a cape. And he's licking the mother box. Or she, I should say. So at that point, we see them talk about, like, yes, cows in some cultures are revered as sacred, so you shouldn't say anything bad about this cow. And all of a sudden, the cow turns and looks at something just down the road. And we see that it is a bus stop. And so they're like, look, the cow has pointed the way to the bus stop. We can get back home in no time. And so at one point, one of the girls is just like, oh, well, maybe we should take the cow with us. It's so knowledgeable, and it knows so much about this world. And then Bat Cow passes a hat over to the girl, and she's like, a gift? You won't be joining us? And then Bat Cow turns away and walks off into the fields. And she's like, oh, yes, some paths a cow must walk alone. Sure, man. All right, so then we cut over to New Genesis, and we get the backstory that over in the Green Lantern books, New Genesis and the New Gods are doing a thing. There's a crossover going on. It's Godhead. Read the Green Lantern books to know all that stuff. But regardless, it is New Gods versus every Lantern Corps. And so Highfather comes on, talks to Hyman, and says, like, hey, man, I called all of the students back for our whole big thing with the Green Lanterns. Why haven't you called back the Earth ones? And Hyman's like, well, I mean, Earth is super special, and I don't think that it's good for them to lead. So they're trying to make you proud there. And Highfather's like, whatever. Like, I want a full report on what they're doing to make me proud, because frankly, I don't think they're going to. And so then Highfather disconnects, and immediately this huge bolt of energy attacks Hyman. And it turns out it's Infinity Man, or just the concept of him, I guess. And he's just like, you were lying to Highfather and you tried to make it so I wouldn't come back. That's going to bite you in the ass, man. I'm Infinity Man and I'm definitely back. Stay out of my way. And so Hyman just kind of freaks out about that. We see that the bus arrives back in town. And like they apparently had a horrible trip and everything was awful, but they arrive and they're like, well, that wasn't so bad. They start walking their way back home and just like, look, regardless, let's just turn in for the night. We don't need to do anything else. And then all of a sudden, Mark Moonrider, I'm guessing that's his name because I'm not getting any reminders in this issue, is invited to a pool party. And there's like, oh, right, yeah, there was a flyer under the door for that. Maybe we should go. And there's like, nah, man, we've been through too much today. So as they get back home, we see Azurte, who is the girlfriend of that other guy. Again, I have no idea what any of their names are anymore. The girlfriend is just like, oh, I was sent here. I wanted it to be a surprise. I'm doing the best I can here. And I didn't want to be detected. I wanted it to be a surprise. So I shut down all the boom tubes in the area when I came by. And they were like, you shut down the boom tubes, like, by surprise? Like, did you ever think what would happen to people who might have been in the boom tubes at that time? And she's like, nah, not really. So they're all about to, like, throw a punch at her. We then have Mark turning and attacking that other dude in the group. I swear I'll eventually get them there. And he blasts him with energy, and he's just like, oh, I should have done this a long time ago. This is all your fault. Exploding boom tubes, like, this is all you. And then he, like, gets poked in the back of the head by his sister. By the guy he's attacking sister. And she's like, hey, you, outside. And then he immediately is just like, look, I know you want to say that, like, I should manage my emotions better and all that, but, oh, who am I kidding? You're right. I should be doing that better. None of this is going as planned. I wanted to enjoy our time on Earth. But, the cool air helps me feel better, so I'm glad that we had this talk. And she's like, right on, man. Glad I could help, question mark. So then we get a pool cleaner being accosted by two gentlemen who, like, are throwing stuff into the pool and also peeing into the pool, and they're just making fun of them. And we see the one girl come over just like, sir, I noticed you were being harassed by these people. And this guy's like, yes, they're dicks, but whatever. My name's Scuba, Dr. Scuba. And yeah, I'm a real doctor of hydrology. Water is life. I like when water is pure. That's why I'm a good pool cleaner. And she's like, that's a very noble cause. I really like that about you. He's like, yeah, well, those people are dicks, and I have no power to stop them, but so be it. And she's like, maybe you should have power. And so she throws a cosmic cartridge into the back of his head, and she's like, in a few hours you'll wake up feeling a new man. And then some random ass person shows up and says, wow, it's really nice how you're super cool with the repeat offenders, especially the crazy ones. And immediately she's like, oh, I'm sorry, that man's insane. Oopsie, he's gonna have some powers soon. So then as Mark is walking back to whatever's going on, there's a femme fatale, this crazy-ass woman who attacks Moonrider and is like, I'm going to kill you now. The other femme fatales can wait. But before she can attack, there's a blinding light that Mark notices, and everyone else sees it too, and she's like, all right, well, I guess I can wait. Lord Agog will not be happy, but so be it, we will kill Mark soon. And so everyone looks around and they're like, yeah, something's going on up in the sky. We got to figure out what it is. And it's a disturbance in the source. And as they're trying to figure out what it is, maybe it's Darkseid attacking, maybe it's something else, all of a sudden the energy gets stronger and stronger, and the wall explodes in red light, and we see it's Guy Gardner of the Red Lantern Corps saying, hey all, read Red Lanterns number 35 to make sense of this. And he's saying he's going to kick their asses. So this was an issue. This was a book. This did some things. I don't like this series. Look, if you're going to sell your entire issue on the cover for whatever reason to be a Bat Cow appearance, I at least expect it to be moderately associated with the plot. I at least expect it to be something that matters in the smallest, rather than whatever the hell this was. If you want to tie into Godhead, or if you're even being forced to tie into Godhead, the fact that Dan DiDio's writing it tells me that he's not, because he's co-publisher and he can do whatever he wants. But if you're doing the Godhead tie-in, sell it on that, man. What are you doing? Just a Bat Cow. Yeah, great. So, yeah, it's not a good issue. It's confusing. They aren't saying characters' names nearly enough for me to register who these people are. Maybe in a trade that would have read great, but there's no trade of this book, so it doesn't matter. 5.5. I'll give it above the midpoint just because I'm a sucker like that. But like, this book is very quickly losing ground with me, and I don't think it's going to make it back up. Justice League Dark number 35, written by J.M. DeMatteis, art by Tom Derenick. So this picks up from Justice League Dark Annual number 2, which unfortunately does not come out until the week after this book was released. So they just kind of float about whatever's supposed to happen. So we open up this issue with a giant wormhole of space and time that the Justice League Dark, which at this point consists of not only people like Deadman, Zatanna, Swamp Thing, but also we got Nightmare Nurse, Black Orchid, looks like Madame Xanadu's in there, as well as Frankenstein and I'm always blanking on his name, but Vampire, the vampire guy. So we see that this story follows Zatanna. She's like, oh, Constantine used a spell and he turned into a whirling hole of energy and now we're all falling into it and I can't escape and I lost all my compatriots and then I just kind of fell. And as she fell, she lands in this random somewhere. She has no idea where it is, but it is Earth-like at the very least. And as she gets up, she feels woozy. It feels like a dream. And then all of a sudden, this giant-ass dinosaur worm thing shows up and comes to attack her, and she's like, this feels familiar. I don't know why this feels familiar, but it does. But then immediately it starts lunging at her. She tries casting a spell and it doesn't work. The creature starts speaking in demonic rhyme, saying, we had a treaty, we had a pact, now it's broken and I must act. So it starts coming after Zatanna, and as she's about to get eaten, all of a sudden a voice comes out saying, Momrath, get out of here. And we see a being come in on a flying carpet, blasting it with magic, sending away Momrath, the giant dinosaur worm. And Zatanna's like, wait a minute, I recognize that. That's impossible. And we see the being turned around saying, don't worry about him. His bark's worse than his bite. And she says, that's my dad. That is Giovanni Zatara, and he is young? What? What is happening here? So Zatanna gets picked up on his magic carpet and just like, oh, you've got a fever. I'm going to take you back to the house and you'll be safe and among friends. And she's like, I mean, I feel safe with him, but like, this guy can't be my dad. Like, it's absolutely impossible. He died years ago. Like, this can't be him. So she's hesitant, and as she's looking around at this world, she's like, oh, this is beautiful. It's like Wonderland or Oz or whatever. And Giovanni's like, oh, yeah, no, I felt the same way. Like, this place is like through the looking glass. And she's like, but how? And he's like, we have all the time to answer your questions, but for right now, you need to get a good night's sleep. So he brings her to what seems to be a normal-ass suburban house in this magical fantasy world, sets her down in the bed, and she very quickly passes out. And as she wakes up, she's like, oh, it was all just a dream. None of it was real. But then she realizes, oh, wait, I'm still in the house. All right. So she goes downstairs. She does feel very recharged after everything, like physically, magically, everything's back in place. And as she comes down, she's like, this place seems like really, really familiar. And like, I'm super like weirded out by all of this. And as she gets into the kitchen, she sees that not only Giovanni is there, but Giovanni's wife and a 5-year-old girl named Zatanna is there. And she's like, what in the absolute hell is going on? So he makes her some breakfast. The wife, whose name is Cindella, is like, oh yeah, something about this place. When you first show up, you feel sick as a dog for like a day, but then all of a sudden you bump right back and you feel great afterwards. So she asks where she is, and Zatara says that they are 6 billion years in the past, and that he came from the far-off year of 1992. And Zatanna points out, like, the Earth is only like 4 billion years old. And it's like, yeah, right? It's weird that we're back this far. Anyway, meet my family. Everything's cool, right? And Zatanna's just like, all right, I gotta bounce. I gotta go real quick. So she steps outside to get some air. And she says her name is Dorothy, so as to not break like whatever sort of weird time travel rules going on here. And Zatara comes out and says like, Dorothy, you know, like, look, if you don't want to share your name, I get it, but like, you're a magician too, aren't you? And she's like, no, you need to answer my questions about this place first. And he's like, all right, so be it. So he explains, they get on the magic carpet, start flying around. He explains that He spent years looking for a time before time when magic was everywhere and you could just think something. You wouldn't even have to cast a spell. You think something and it becomes real. And he managed to find a way back to that time and it worked. However, he came with his family because he figured, yeah, this place is going to be cool. Let's vacation there. But they couldn't get back. They couldn't get back to modern day. So they've just kind of been stuck here, and they tried living all this different ways. It's been months or centuries. They don't know. They never age. And eventually they just settled down on an old-timey suburban home because they believe that the family is better together. And as they arrive back, Zatanna comes out. She trips, and Zatara comforts her and just like, oh, no, don't cry. I'm here. Everything's all right. Maybe we should go inside. We can read a story. Mary Poppins, Wizard of Oz, all these other public domain books. And Zatanna freaks out and she's like, okay, I'm watching myself be comforted, but like, I don't remember any of this and I don't know why. Maybe I like blocked it out once my mom died in 1992 or 1993, like a year after theoretically they get back. Or maybe I have my memories removed. I don't know, but I got to get out of here and look for my friends. So she takes off. She looks around the world for like a few hours, finds a bunch of crazy stuff, but she doesn't get any luck finding her friends. And just as she's about to give up, in walks the Justice League Dark. Everybody, including Constantine, comes in and they're like, you're a hard woman to find, but we got you. And they're like, oh my God, you have no idea the craziness that I just found out. And Constantine's like, yeah, same on our side. Crazy stories. Anyway, give me a kiss, love. And Zatanna's like, wait a minute, hold on. In the annual, you turned into a giant wormhole thing. What are you doing alive? And he's like, I'm Constantine. Of course I got out of that. And they share a kiss. And she's like, wait a minute. Living in a world where you can think things and it just becomes true without spells. Your deepest thoughts become reality. This is fake. You're not actually here. And they all crumble into dust. And she's like, oh, and now I realize something else as well. So she goes back over to Zatara, who's sitting out on his porch. Night has fallen, and Zatanna's like, you didn't come through with your family, did you? And Zatara's like, I got lonely, and I made them up. And yeah, they aren't real, but like I want them to be real, so they are here. And he points out, like, you know, I know you're my daughter. Like, it didn't take me that long to figure it out. It took me a while to accept it, but like, it didn't take me long to figure it out. But like, you're my daughter, Z. How could I not know? And so he's like, okay, well, you know, right upstairs, I'm sure she's being read a bedtime story. I'm sure it's like Alice in Wonderland or whatever. But as long as you're here now, I don't feel like I need them anymore. So he turns off the lights on them and is ready to share just some bonding time with his daughter. And then all of a sudden the dinosaur worms come back. And now there's a bunch of them, including Momrath. And just like, haha, you broke the treaty. We're all here. We're going to kill you now. In rhyme. And Zatanna asks about the treaty and just like, oh yeah, when I first showed up here, it was a whole thing of like, you know, they keep to their land, we keep to ours, but because when you crash landed here, you landed in their land, it got a bit messed up. And it's just like, all right, whatever, we can fight it out. So they use this primal magic at the beginning of time to fight against these dinosaur worms. Zatanna's super impressed by her dad. And then all of a sudden she gets little glimpses in her head of a drawing she made that looked exactly like Momrath and her father and her fighting on flying carpets. And she's like, why am I thinking about that? And the fighting continues, and she's so proud of her dad, and she's casting spells to like completely get rid of Momrath and all the demon worms. And then she thinks of the drawing again, and she's like, why? I used to draw things about like made up creatures, and my dad and I would be fighting against them because we were magicians. And all of a sudden it all comes back to her, and she starts quoting the Jabberwocky from Lewis Carroll. And in the end of the Jabberwocky is, and the Momraths outgrabe. And she's like, I made up the Momraths when I showed up without even realizing it. It was a deep, dark, repressed memory. The Momraths were just my creation. And so are you. And Zatara's like, yeah, as you realize it, I realize it. I'm not real. All of this was just made as soon as you landed because you had some deep repressed memory of these drawings that you made as a kid. And so he comforts Zatanna and just like, oh, but like, I don't want you to go. Even though I realize that I want you to stay. And she's like, oh, but I have to go. You have to go find your family. Like, it's something that needs to happen. You need to find your way home. That's what needs to happen. And so he fades away as she cries and she falls to her knees and the house tumbles apart. Everything starts raining. It's just absolute misery. And we cut to else when, some other place in time and space, And we see Frankenstein, Nightmare Nurse, iVampire, and Swamp Thing are all walking through a barren land trying to figure out where they are, when they are, what's going on. And as they approach the edge of a cliff, Frankenstein's like, well, we're at the end of the world, and they look out into this black abyss, and that's all that is. So stay tuned, I guess, for the annual next week that takes place before this. As for this issue, my only complaint is the art style is very house style. It didn't quite have like an edge to it. It was very safe the whole way through, but like, damn, that was a good story about Zatanna. I've always been interested about the Zatara stuff. It doesn't come up as frequently as I would like. I think all that pretty much happened pre-Crisis. So it's good. It's a solid issue. I really did enjoy it. I'm going to give this one like an 8.5. I think it's really, really solid. I would highly suggest checking it out for anyone who is a fan of Zatanna. I think it does a very good job of like putting her through the paces here. So, solid. Future's End number 25, written by Azzarello, Lemire, Jurgens, and Giffen, art by Patrick Zurcher, and Jesus Marino. So this issue opens up with the Stormwatch crew being attacked by Brainiac bots, and they got nothing they can fight with. It's just a bunch of swords and fists, so they start laying into them as hard as they can. Adam tells Engineer to go interact with the ship, get it moving. Hawkman provides cover. She's like, I can't believe Stormwatch is dead. And he's like, I can't believe that you don't remember being Brainiac. And she's like, fill me in later. So she goes and interacts with the ship. And she's like, okay, I need to figure out like what's going on. It's completely kaput, so it's going to take some time to build up. We see the rest of the crew is holding on fiercely, doing what they can to fight against the robots. And she goes, oh no. And they say, what? And she goes, well, we have an active bleed drive, but the navigation system was in the part of the carrier that got ripped up. So, like, I can get us out of here via, like, warp space, pretty much, but we don't know where in the multiverse we'll show back up. And Hawkman's like, better than here, go for it. So she launches the ship, protocols, and they disappear somewhere into the multiverse. We then cut over to Cadmus Island, where we end up at, and I'm going to read this directly, 50 Sue's ultra top secret, authorized personnel only, trespassers will be eviscerated, super secure sidekick bunker. And everyone's in there, Lana, Faraday, Grifter, and Deathstroke, and they're looking around, and like Faraday's impressed at like, this is his island. He didn't even know about it. He has no idea what's going on. And we see on the computer 50 Sue is working on are all of the Brother Eye logos. And they're all just like, I'm sorry, did you just literally let Brother Eye into this place after we spent so long trying to like escape him? And she's like, yeah, but I'm not stupid. And Brother Eye confesses like, where are you? I can't see you. How are you able to talk to me? And I don't know where you're at. And she's like, yeah, all right, well, why don't you give me a try to trace me? And she's like, hey, or the robot Brother Eye is like, this was not part of our agreement. You're going against that. And 50 Sue's like, it's okay to lie to robots. That's what the Bible says. And it's like, no, it doesn't. Shut up. So at that point, Deathstroke unplugs the computer and just like, okay, I'm not surprised, but like, we need to figure out what we need to actually do here. And Grifter's like, yeah, what if she calls down like an army of Omax? She's just playing a game. She's just having fun. She knows that like she could remove Brother Eye with a blink of her eye, but she's not, because this is fun for her. And she's like, yep, absolutely. So at that point, Deathstroke is like, hey, Faraday is unable to get off this island. None of us are, because all the teleport stuff is being locked down by him. He controls that tech. And Grifter's like, okay, I wasn't going to tell you this, because frankly, it's none of my business. But like, I can see when people have superpowers. That is, I am able to see duplicity. And ever since I saw Faraday, I've known somehow what his power set is. He can teleport. Like, he's told you all that there's teleport tech, and the tech helps him, like, zero in on exact coordinates, but he can just teleport whenever he wants. And Deathstroke's like, you son of a bitch. And he's just like, yeah, all right, well, none of you guys are going to be any help with me now, so I'm just going to bounce. I did remember some old coordinates that I could get to whenever, so bye. And he just teleports out. Deathstroke is super pissed off that Grifter didn't let them know beforehand, but he's also pointing out that, like, how bad is this situation that even Faraday's obsession with getting all of these Earth 2 things onto Cadmus Island, that he's willing to just bail on it? Like, we're screwed. We're absolutely screwed here. And 50 Sue says, hey, don't worry about it. We're going to need Grifter around. I've got an idea to get the island back. And he's like, you can't be serious. And she's like, yep, but one of you guys is going to have to wear the red shirt. So then we go to Superman in Africa, who's fighting against a robot who in this conversation is said to be a offshoot of Brainiac. And we have Constantine basically doing the narration and explaining, look, Superman, you fought Brainiac, or at least you thought you fought Brainiac, but in actuality, those are all just little pieces of Brainiac. They're all tiny little things that are controlled by the mad god that is the actual Brainiac that exists outside of time and space. And he is bigger than anything you've ever fought, but for some reason, he's afraid of you. I don't know why. I have no idea why this god being a Brainiac would care about you specifically, but he sent this robot here to fight you and test you. So what does that mean? And Superman's just like, I don't care. Look, I'm going to beat this real Brainiac down and then game over. Like, that's it. It's all done. And Constantine's like, no, you don't get it. Like, that robot you just beat up there, it was not for the purpose of trying to take you down. It's for the purpose of testing you, for seeing your capabilities. You just showed them off fully, and now he knows what they are. So you've already lost the game because of that. And he's basically saying, like, yeah, and now he's gone. And Superman's like, where? He says, oh, there's one of 7 sites across the globe. And Superman is finally like, okay, I might need your help on finding those things. And he's like, finally, yes, okay, I can take you there. So we got over to New York. Madison is talking to Ronnie Raymond, and something about energy drinks or whatever. And all of a sudden on the news, he sees that there is a earthquake that's about to cause a tsunami out in America Samoa. And immediately he's like, hey, where can I find Jason Rush right now? You know, your college buddy? And Madison's like, oh, he should be in the lab, I guess. I don't think he goes anywhere else. And he's like, great, cool. I gotta go. Bye. So he runs off. He goes trying to get into the lab. He sees that it's locked. So he goes to a janitor and is like, hey, I'm the quarterback for the football team. You like football? And the janitor's like, yes. And he's like, cool. Let me into that lab. And the janitor's like, okay. So he gets into the lab. He sees Jason, calls down to him. It's just like, hey, man, what's up? And Jason's like, what the hell are you doing here, man? I freaking hate you. I hate everything about you. What are you doing here? And he's just like, yeah. So there's a tsunami going on in American Samoa. I figured maybe we can. Oh, I'm sorry. You want me to be Firestorm again with you after you trapped me in the Firestorm Matrix for weeks and held me prisoner? And I swore to you that I would never become Firestorm with you ever again. You want me to be Firestorm again after that? And he's like, well, yeah, but there's a tsunami. And he's like, yeah, well, I don't really care. Look, I just texted Superman. Superman's going to take care of it. Get the hell out of here. I never want to see you again. And he's just like, look, we're needed. And he's like, no, I get it now. I understand. You don't want to be Firestorm because Firestorm is needed. You need Firestorm. You love being a superhero. That's what it is, right? And Ronnie's just like, yeah, you know what? Yeah, I like flying. I like bumping elbows with Superman in the league. I want that back. And Jason's like, too bad. It's done. I'm never going to do that again. You have lost that. Get out of the lab now. And he's just like, look, I know what I did was wrong. I've been a jerk. I've done some reflecting. I am sorry. And he just gets up and leaves. And Jason's like, yeah, maybe you are, maybe not. Either way, I'm never going to be Firestorm again. Cue a tiny little secret magic camera that is recording everything. And we see on the other side is Dr. Yamakaze, who says, oh my God, Jason Rush is Firestorm. And he works with the Justice League, and he must be trying to take down my teleportation tech. He's been sabotaging me all along. How dare you? And we see he even has like a murder board with all the Justice League photos on it with like X's over them. So yeah, that's that. It's all right. I mean, the pacing in this issue is very good. I like the fact that it spends several pages on each one of them and doesn't like jump around page to page of what's going on. I think that while obviously the Cadmus Island thing is the primary focus, I feel like they are still playing that mystery a bit too close to the chest. I think they need to give up a little bit more and stop doing this like, what are 50 Sue's secret machinations going to be and all this other stuff. So yeah, everything else is fine. I don't really have a problem with it. I'm very happy we didn't get another thing of, but you lied to me, Red Robin. Like, thank you. I'm going to give this one probably just flat 7. It's not bad, but it didn't really do anything big for me either. If anything, the most interesting point to it for me is Stormwatch now being just somewhere in the multiverse, because, hey, 5 years in the future, but somewhere else in the multiverse, that could be interesting. I want to see where that goes. But for now, 7. Earth 2 World's End number 3, written by Bennett, Johnson, and Wilson, art by 9 different people that I will not be naming. So, last issue, creatures popping up out of the pits. One of them mind controls all the different women on the team, while Batman and Superman, or Val-Zod, I should say, are left to their own things and are beaten pretty badly. So as this creature named Klee comes after and is ready to kill Batman, Val-Zod swoops in, saves him at the last second, and Klee sends after them Power Girl, Red Tornado, and Huntress. And they do the same things they did last issue, where Huntress is like, "You're not the real Batman, that was my dad, get out, you're an imposter." Power Girl's like, "Val-Zod, our planet was killed and you left me alone and I don't like you." And Klee just tells Red Tornado, "Hey, once they're done, destroy the city and then kill yourself." And she's like, "Can do, boss." So Klee then takes off to go do her own thing. We then cut around the world, and we see that these beings, these creatures, are actually like the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. So Klee represents war. Over in Rio, they have pestilence. In London, they have famine. And attacking Atlantis, they have death. And we see that, at least for Rio and London, the effects are already taking place. So we then cut to Amazonia, the World Army headquarters. By the way, Green Lantern's over in Rio. He's putting up a fight there. So World Army headquarters, they're like, okay, we've gotten word that Apocalypse is going to be crashing into us at the end of this series. 23 issues from now. Sorry, 23 weeks from now. And we don't know why they're doing that, because it would destroy both our planets. And all of the other heads that are in command of Commander Khan are like, well, we're going to nuke it. That's what we're going to do. We're going to fire off the nukes. And he's just like, that's a stupid idea. And they're like, right, but we have some intelligence. We've captured Mr. Miracle, and we're going to interrogate him to see what he knows. And they're just like, Mr. Miracle's like ultra powerful. He could definitely escape if he wanted to, but he's being chill. We should treat him as an ally. And they're like, we don't care. We're still going to interrogate him. So we see the interrogation process from Sandman, and Mr. Miracle's basically like, dude, nukes ain't going to do anything. It's going to be like a light tickle to Apocalypse, because the planet is not a planet. The planet is a god. Also, I am a god. Get me out of here. And just like, oh, likely story. They try checking his brain to see if he's lying about anything, but they can't make heads or tails of it. And then we cut over to Terry Sloan, who says, well, Mr. Miracle will give us what we need, whether he wants to or not. So then we got over to Chicago in the refugee camp that's going on there. Dick Grayson with his wife Babs are currently getting some supplies, and they're like, oh, it's okay, you know, everything will work out. And this dude shows up and punches Dick in the face and is like, give me your box, I want your supplies. To which Babs then comes in, twists the guy's arm around his back, and it's just like, all right, that's it, enough of that, get out of here, I don't want to see you around anymore. So Dick's like, well, I'm glad that my wife is a cop. And she's like, yeah, me too. Anyway, we gotta stay together. We got to keep the peace within ourselves. Everything will be fine. And Dick's the one saying that, and just like, yeah, I don't really believe that. So we then cut over to London. We see Hawkgirl and Dr. Fate have made their way in, and she's calling Dr. Fate Khalid, because that's his name, or also saying, Dr. Fate, Khalid, any of that? And he's like, nope, my name is Naboo, and I am looking for my next wielder. And she's like, all right, so be it. So she looks down and sees the... it's not famine. It's pestilence. No, it is famine. Famine's on this one. So famine is causing chaos, saying like, oh, it feels good to starve everyone, and I grow stronger as I absorb their life force. And we see stepping in outside a building is Constantine, who, if you were reading the Constantine book, you'd know that this is actual Earth 0 Constantine, not Earth 2. It's confusing. So then back in Geneva, Power Girl's blasting Val-Zod, Huntress is about to kill Batman, and Red Tornado is like, hey, systems alert, you've been hacked, rebooting, wiping memory, getting everything back to a backup. And so Red Tornado gets back just in the nick of time to blast away Power Girl and Huntress, and she's like, oh, I'm so sorry, you guys all right? I rebooted my system, and I'm hoping you guys are cleared out of it too. And they fall out of Klee's thing and just like, yeah, we're good, we're fine, we're good. Jesus. And they look around and everything's just like completely destroyed, and it's just like, what happened to the girl? And it's like, oh, well, they left. and said to going to join her sisters, which then she's like, yeah, those pits, they were giving off some weird readings, some weird radiation earlier on that was something that we should be taking care of. So then we cut over to Amazonia, where Jimmy Olsen is there, and he's being led around by, I always forget her name, the other general there, Sato, I believe. And they're like, okay, looks like Dr. Fate has made his way over to London. Doesn't look like he's joining the fight, though. Not sure what's going on there. And he throws out like some cryptic clues and just like, great, yeah, he's rhyming. Awesome. And then all of a sudden, Jimmy hears something and his eyes go white and he seems to be having like a seizure. He says, "Mother, may I?" And then he comes to and he looks over at Sato just like, "It spoke to me. You're keeping it prisoner. You need to tell me everything about that cube that you got locked under this place right now." So we see Mr. Terrific is talking with Sloan, Khan, and Sandman, and just like, all right, well, Mr. Miracle is cooperative. The female companions were not, so I don't know. How do you want to handle this? And Sloan says we should let them out. And Khan is just like, you're a mass murderer. I don't care what you have to say. And Sloan's like, oh, but like over in the other book, I came to my senses and I realized what I did was wrong. So I'm cool now. And Khan's like, yeah, all right, whatever. So should we trust Mr. Miracle? Like, why should we trust him? It's like, oh, we don't have to trust him. We just have to follow him home. Like, then we can send in our local assets. So at that point, we see where Mr. Miracle's being held. Barda and Fury have teamed up to like bust him out. And Miracle's just like, I really asked you two to be patient. I didn't want to make this a big thing. And then like some lasers start attacking the three of them. And it's not doing anything. Barda's just like shrugging them off and beating them up. And she's like, whatever, this feels productive. So then over in Amazonia, I don't know, we're in Dr. Crane's laboratory where they are analyzing the mother box that they have on hand, and the radiation is lethal. So Dr. Crane in a robot body decides to step in. He tries to get the data that he can, but he's expelled out by all the force of the radiation. And he says only one person can help us. And they're like, you're right, find Jimmy Olsen. So back over in Geneva, the rest of the group's like, okay, so the pits are a problem. We need to go deal with that. If we stay up here, all we're doing is dealing with the symptoms, not the disease. We got to go back down there because before we thought the worst thing in the pits were parademons. Now it turns out it's literally the four horsemen of the apocalypse. So everything's connected. We got to go down there and fix whatever's causing this cancer to the earth. And they say like, yeah, we're all good. We're all going to come down there. And Batman calls up Green Lantern. It's like, hey, man, you good to protecting the planet while we're down inside of it? And he's like, yeah, no, I'm cool. I've already like fire cleansed all of Brazil. So I should be able to help out with that. By the way, has anyone heard from Aquaman? Cut over to Atlantis. She's swimming down like, oh, please still be good. Please still be good. Please still. Ah, son of a bitch. And she sees that death has taken over Atlantis and all of the people inside are now zombies, quote unquote. They're at least emaciated and following her will. So, yeah. Okay, that's the plot of the book now. The plot of the book is they're going to go inside of the Earth and they're going to deal with whatever is going on in there, and also something with Mr. Miracle and Barda and Fury. I'll be honest, that part of the plot isn't making as much sense to me, but that's not really the focus here. Also, whatever Jimmy Olsen's doing with the mother box is a thing as well. So, a bunch of different plots, all moving at different paces, all done by different artists. It's hard to really quantify this book. I think for the most part, I'm enjoying it right now, but it does live or die based off of how it interacts with the other two Earth 2 books going on right now. And I was critical of that last month. So, or I should say earlier this month, I should say. But, yeah, I'm going to give this one a 7 feels too high, so I'm going to go with a 6.5, but that's only just because I don't feel like I really get what this is doing yet. It's just kind of setting up a bunch of plots still in issue 3. So hopefully we can get to the meat and potatoes of it sooner rather than later. And that's it. That is all the comics that came out from DC Comics this October 22nd, 2014. And next week, we have only 9 comics to talk about. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. It is a 5th week. What does that mean for you? A shorter episode. What does that mean for me? Shorter episode. So that's a cool thing. I really Meant it when I said it at the beginning, though, is that I'm trying to keep this episode trimmed down as much as I possibly can. I know that there are some people who really love long episodes, but you know who doesn't? Podcasting hosting websites that charge for the more longer episodes. So, again, keeping this brief. So if you want to know what books are coming out next week, again, it is on screen if you're watching the video. If you're an audio person, go watch the video. The only thing I will say specifically, though, is that the backup stories that I usually do on fifth weeks, I'm going to double check, but I think there's only been one backup story that has not yet been even completed in one of the books since the last fifth week. And that is not enough for me to even consider it. So I might not do backup stories, but I will double check if I am forgetting anything in the meantime. Might just be an even shorter week than usual is what I'm basically trying to say. Beyond that, that's really all I got this week. Thank you so much for watching, listening. Oh, right, contractual obligations. If you have any comments that you want to share on any of the comments I talked about this week, last week, we could all go ahead and hit us up on any of the social media platforms that we're on, such as Patreon, Discord, or Reddit. All those are in the links down below or in the screen. Cool. I'm really getting the hang of that one. Besides that, thank you very much for watching, listening, consuming this podcast. However it is you do, be sure to interact with it positively and tell it that it looks pretty. Otherwise, it's going to go cry in its room for the night. That's it for me. See you next week. And always try to remember, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.